with that. Okay, thank you. No problem. All right, so it's 6:31. We have a quorum, so I'm going to call the meeting to order, and I'll read the virtual meeting notice. Pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the Open Meeting Law, General Laws, Chapter 30A, Section 18, and the Governor's March 15, 2020 order imposing strict limitations on the number of people that may gather in one place, this meeting of the Sturbridge Finance Committee will be conducted via remote participation to the greatest extent possible. Specific information in the general guidelines for the remote participation can be found on the town's website at https://www.sturbridge.gov, town administrator /pages/how to access virtual meeting. For this meeting, members of the public who wish to listen or watch the meeting either online via the town's on-demand video broadcast, on cable television, on channel 191, dial into the meeting at 774-304-1455, then enter 1428 pound for the meeting number and 12345 for the access code. The phone number is only active for the public during public meetings. No in-person attendance of members of the public will be permitted, but every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings in real time via technological means. In the event that we aren't able to do so, despite best efforts, we will post on the town's website an audio or video recording, transcript, or other comprehensive record of the proceedings as soon as possible after the meeting. And that can go away. Okay, so I can get rid of number 2 on the agenda for tonight, which is reserve fund transfers. We don't have any. Usually next would be the line item budget, but since we have a lot of guests in attendance this evening, we'll skip over that for now and come back to it later. And we'll move into the annual town meeting articles, discussion, and votes. And the first up was to be Gene Boubon to discuss the zoning articles, and then followed up at 7 with the CPC representative, which I believe Barbara Penny said you were the CPC representative tonight.
Right, yeah.
And we'll go with that and then fill in everything else from there. Now, as far as our working copy of the annual town meeting warrant, this is just a logistical thing, but in case people don't realize it, we were provided with a new working copy today, and the new working copy file name is working copy 2022 town meeting warrant _AJM _2021-04-22 PDF file.
Kevin.
So we'll work. Yeah.
I'm sorry. Joni wants to share the warrants. Can I give her that permission?
Sure. And Joni, just to confirm, you're going to do the new one? Yep. All right. Great.
Kevin, this is Mike. Just so I'm clear.
Yep.
I assume that there are some cleanups and adjustments to some of the articles, but nothing that I would call substantial. And have there been anything added? I guess I'm asking if I'm still working off an old copy. Am I that far off from what the new one is?
I know that I think there were a couple removed, but I haven't gone that far and confirmed it myself because I haven't had the opportunity to compare both. But I was going to kind of work through both tonight because I know, like Article 1, we voted last week, and it happens to be the same Article 1 this week. So that's a huge thumbs up, and so that our vote would just carry over. So we're good. We're good there.
So Kevin, this is Barbara. The cleanup, there was some typos. The selectmen, the votes of the Board of Selectmen have been added for those articles that they took action on Tuesday evening. And then at the end of the report or of the warrant, there was 2 articles for funding for fire and police negotiations that have been removed. But Mike, you would be good to work off your old copy. Nothing major has changed. There's no content changes. With the exception of I think there was something added to the recreation article, but you didn't even get that far the other night, so we can discuss that if we get there tonight.
Thank you.
And so I'm trying to find the first zoning article, what page it's on, because there's a lot of them. 32.
I think it's page 22, at least on my copy, but I didn't print the latest version.
Article 36 is what you're thinking the first one is, Jean?
Yes, I
Okay.
believe so.
So Article 36 is on the bottom of page 22 in our new copy. Now, via Jim and actually from Gina herself, there was a lot of information sent out about these articles, and I don't know if everyone had a chance to read them, but there was a lot of background detail provided for a lot of these things. All right, so Article 36. This is just basically...
You want me to give an overview, Kevin?
Yeah, sure.
So this is basically the recodification. You'll recall that we had a special article, I believe, a year ago for money to hire general code publishers to go through and clean up the zoning bylaws, the general bylaw, the charter, and a lot of the rules and regulations of the various boards and committees. So that is what this article is. It's really minor changes. I think I sent a document, maybe about 20 pages last week, that kind of goes through and tells you it was, Article 1, Article 2, we changed a couple of the definitions. We removed definitions that didn't go to anything in the bylaw. But for the most part, it's cleanup of typographical errors, renumbering, updating certain sections of the Mass General Law that just were not up to date. So nothing really major. You'll see what we did do is we pulled out anything where there was significant changes, like accessory dwelling bylaw and floodplain. We pulled those out as separate articles and do that after codification. That way, if anyone has any concerns, it wouldn't sink the whole work that we've done last year on renumbering and cleaning up these other items.
That's great. I like that when you can have that separability to it. Okay. So, all right. I was looking at your document you provided us. You called it Article 35, but the numbers probably changed since then.
Yes, I think they have changed a couple of times. So it is Article 36.
Okay. All right. So Article 36. Do I have a motion from someone to approve Article 36 as written?
This is Jim. I won't make that motion.
Okay.
Second.
And Kathy seconds. Jim Water, Kathy Neal. So, any further questions, comments, or discussions for anybody related to this particular article?
I have one question, Kevin.
Yeah, go ahead, Kathy.
It's fairly just routine, I guess. Jean, is the numbering system they use sort of uniform throughout the entire country, the way they do it? Because I know from being on school committee, that was the case, that like a section was on, say, students, and it was always numbered the same. Is it similar here?
It is pretty similar. Some of the other comparison communities that I reviewed when we were looking at hiring them, it seemed that a lot of them, the zoning is Chapter 300, and that's what we will be, is Article 300 in the new codification. So I don't know if you could make that general statement saying that it's consistent across every town they work on. It might depend on how many, sets of regulations they've had them revise.
Yeah, it was mostly just, curiosity, but also if you're looking at different bylaws, sometimes it's nice, 300 is going to be zoning, or a subset would be similar. So that was my only question.
Okay. Anybody else? Questions? No? All right, so we'll go to the roll call vote, and we'll, like we've been doing, alphabetically. So, Bruce? Yes. Yes. Okay. Mike?
Yes.
Joni?
Yes.
Larry?
Yes.
Kathy?
Yes.
Kevin is a yes, and Jim?
Yes.
Okay, so that's 7-0. in favor of the article as written. Okay. So moving on to Article 37, which is accessory dwelling units.
Yep. So, as many of you are probably aware, I think some of you participated in our process. We recently completed our housing production plan for the community, and that plan's been adopted by the Board of Selectmen, the Planning Board, and actually Department of Housing and Community Development approved it in the past couple of weeks. So during that process, we did a series of surveys. We were really fortunate to get our public forums in before COVID really took hold and closed everything down, and we had fantastic attendance, really. And a lot of what we heard is that people really wanted better opportunities to create accessory dwelling units, whether it be for an aging parent or maybe a son or daughter that needed a little extra help, or, you know, in this day and age, the extended family is really coming back. And then in some cases, we heard from some seniors that, gee, if I could rent a small unit in my home, I might be able to better age in place and stay in Sturbridge and be better able to pay my taxes and my bills and things like that. So it was kind of overwhelming that people wanted a little more flexibility. Our bylaw as written was very strict. It limited the unit to 600 square feet or 20% of the dwelling, whichever was less, which honestly doesn't even meet the minimum size for habitation. If you look in our bylaw, the minimum dwelling size can be 750 square feet. And then if you compound that, say you had a handicapped parent in a wheelchair and you needed to make all of your rooms accessible, you need 36-inch wide doorways and more room in the bathrooms. It was just really impossible to create that type of unit. And then beyond that, if you were able to figure out creatively how to make a 600 square foot unit for your mom or your dad, and now a year has, you've put $30,000 into it and you've built it, well, now you had to come back and renew that special permit, which was pretty silly to ask someone who's made that huge investment to come back and renew their permit. So these changes have eliminated the cap on the dwelling unit size, and instead has said that it has to be subordinate to the principal dwelling. And remember, this will still be by special permit to the Zoning Board of Appeals, so everybody will go through a special permit process. And then we also added the possibility of creating an accessory unit in a detached accessory structure. We've had several cases where we've had to turn people away where they had a detached garage that would have made a perfect cottage for their in-laws, and they couldn't use it because our bylaw said it had to be an attached accessory structure. And then we removed the language on the, transferring of ownership or renewing the permit on an annual basis. So really kind of minor changes that will really have a significant impact on people being able to have these units in their houses, on their properties in Sturbridge, and it's more in line with the housing choice bills that have recently been through the legislature. And actually, they've changed some of the voting requirements for housing zoning bylaws in an effort to get communities to be a little more liberal with what they're allowing in terms of residential units.
So, Jean, I do have one question for you here, and it really does deal with those detached accessory structures, because, there's these micro homes now you can have built.
Right.
And so let's just say you have 6 kids. Would you be allowed to build 6 separate, I don't want to use the word right now.
No. No,
Okay.
You're talking more like tiny home village, and that is not what this bylaw envisions. Currently, we don't have a bylaw for tiny homes. Whether we ever will in the future, I don't know. But this is so that you can have a single accessory dwelling unit on your property by special permit.
But it doesn't say that anywhere that it's a single.
Well, I think it says is a second dwelling unit located on the same lot as the principal dwelling unit, either within the principal dwelling or in an accessory structure. So I do believe it's clear that it is a second unit.
Okay. All right. Yeah, I can see. All right. I was just thinking that every one of those instances could be considered a second unit to the principal dwelling. And then I was thinking that if you had 6 of them, as long as it doesn't add up to the total square feet of the principal dwelling, you'd be safe. And I was hoping, okay.
I wouldn't read it that way.
Okay.
That's being pretty. Planners have a reputation for being creative. You're being more creative than a planner with that interpretation.
Okay. All right.
What a surprise.
Okay, I don't have any other questions on this particular article. Does anyone else?
On the summary right before the end of this, I was just a little puzzled by the language. Has the possibility of creating a unit in a detached accessory structure in addition to a detached accessory structure already contained in the bylaw.
Right.
Does
Right
anyone
now,
else have any trouble with that language?
no.
I can tell you, it means that currently you can have a unit in an attached accessory structure, and the change is added detached accessory structure as well.
But I don't think you can have both, because there is a place where it says only one accessory.
Right. What this is trying to say is that you could already have it in an attached accessory structure, and the changes are proposing to allow it in a detached accessory structure. If that's too confusing, we could take out the language in parentheses.
Right. Or you could say rather than just an attached accessory structure or something.
Right.
We can change that language as we need to.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Pointed out. Larry, is that you?
Is that me what?
Oh, I thought I heard someone speak, and I thought it was you. Sorry.
Not I.
It's just hard to tell, you know. Okay. If there are no further questions, we'd like
So, Kevin, this is Mike. So, Gene, I think this is a great change. You know, and I think towns tried this in the past. The stigma has always been, yeah, you want to construct that nice little apartment in your detached garage for your sweet mother who's here and aging, but at some point she passes along. You know, now you're going to rent to some undesirable from out of town, or we're going to have all these apartments in all these other communities, and it just changes the nature and the character of the community, and that's a bad thing. So I hope you don't have to deal with those issues again. This is a nice change for you know, how the population is aging and the needs I think the community is seeing moving forward.
Yeah, I do agree with you, Mike. I am aware that that's the stigma, and you know, hopefully we had such a good turnout at the forums with people that were very supportive of this. So I'm hoping that, you know, that maybe all that education process we went through with the forums helped a little and help people understand. Time will tell, I guess.
Any other questions or comments? All right, so I'd entertain a motion to approve Article 37 as written.
So moved.
Kathy, do I have a second?
This is Mike. Go ahead.
Is that you, Bruce? Second?
Yeah, that was me.
Okay, thanks, Bruce. All right, so back to the roll call. Bruce?
Yes.
Okay. Mike?
Yes.
Tony?
Yes.
Larry?
Yes.
Kathy?
Yes.
Evan is a yes, and Jim?
Yes.
Okay, so that's 7-0. Approval is written. All right, moving right along. Article 38, which is adding fast food establishments to the Village Gateway District.
Yeah, so actually, Article 38 and 39 kind of go together. So if you don't mind, I'll talk about that. They are separate articles, but I'll explain them together if you don't mind.
No?
So the property owner, there's, as you know, there's only one property owner for the entire Village Gateway District. It's basically the corner of New Boston Road and Route 20, the development that's occurring there. And back in the fall, he came in and met with the board, or virtually met with the board, to discuss the issues that he's having with trying to lease these. There's one vacant space that he's already built that's still vacant, and then the other additional pad site. And his thought process was that he had many people approach him to rent the space but they didn't meet the square footage requirements of fast casual, which we had a minimum square footage of 4,000 square feet. So to be fast casual dining, you had to, meet the criteria of that definition, and the biggest one was a minimum of 4,000 square feet. The second one was that fast food was not allowed in that Village Gateway District. And if you'll remember, we have a lot of specific architectural standards, and at the time when we wrote the bylaw, we were very concerned that it would just end up being, a fast food restaurant plunked on that corner, and it wouldn't have kind of that gateway appeal that the master plan talked about. So it was excluded really for that specific reason. So as time's gone on, we tried to rent it, and then COVID hit, and things changed even more. So what we found with COVID is that a smaller footprint is becoming the norm, and we think that's probably here to stay in food service. That drive-throughs are pretty critical for a lot of businesses right now because people don't want to go in many cases, and in many cases they couldn't. The restaurants themselves were closed. And lastly, that curbside pickup parking spaces really were a very necessary issue. So the board considered whether they should eliminate the square footage requirement for fast casual, and if they could consider allowing fast food restaurant in that zoning district without compromising the integrity of what it was designed to do, was have a beautiful look, which it does as you're coming into town. And then thirdly, they were concerned that if they reduced all of the square footage limitations and allowed fast food, then COVID would pass, and lo and behold, we'd be building 6,000 square foot fast casual restaurants again. So we did a lot of research, and I don't know if any of you have had any chance to look at what I sent. It was late today. I apologize for that. I really prepared this for the Board of Selectmen. But I sent you a link to actually a study that was done, and it's interesting. It was done pre-COVID, and it talked about some of those same exact things, that, footprints are getting smaller. We need drive-throughs. We need pickup windows. We need curbside pickup areas. So, and then with the idea of leaving all of our architectural standards in place, the board actually felt that it was really the right thing to do to amend this bylaw to eliminate the 4,000 square foot requirement for fast casual and just leave it open so that as long as you meet that criteria, you can go into any district that allows fast casual. And then lastly, to allow fast food in the Village Gateway District with leaving all the other landscaping and architecture standards in place. So the board did support this unanimously, and the board, even though it was brought to them by somebody else, the board actually voted to be the petitioner for this article because they felt strongly about this. So that's kind of the overview.
Just one quick question for me. What really then, in our definitions, is the difference between fast casual and fast food?
I knew you were going to bring that up, and I did not bring home my copy of the bylaw, so I could pull it up online and I can read it to you. But it's really, in a nutshell, it is really the quality of the food. It is the type of service that you receive. And in many cases, fast casual offers alcohol as well. So fast food is more, think of, quick servicing, paper bags, very limited, probably no table service. And no alcohol. Maybe they have like a soda bar where you fill up your cup of soda. But fast casual is more, you may get some wait service. You have if not a higher quality food, there's the perception of a higher quality food in fast casual. The prices are higher. And in many cases, you can get a glass of beer or a glass of wine or something else with your dinner. So it's really about quality and service versus quick, perceived lesser quality food.
So, Gene, how would you categorize McDonald's, and how would you categorize Panera?
Panera is more fast casual, and McDonald's is fast food. And I will tell you, though, McDonald's, it's funny, I read many restaurant magazines now after doing this research because I'm signed up for every one of their listservs. And McDonald's is actually looking at converting to fast casual, and they're actually going to do a test market where they actually offer some table service and some healthier meal options for children. So I think you might see that starting to turn. They're trying to get away from the stigma of the fast food, high-calorie, greasy burgers from the information I've been reading. So I think they're on the cusp, Mike.
Gene, Larry here. Do or do not food trucks fit the definitions in Article 38 and 39?
They do not. Food trucks are specifically regulated by the Board of Health and can be anywhere that the Board of Health allows them to be, or you could be a business and you could invite a food truck to be on your property, and provided you have adequate space for them to be parked and you are lawfully permitted by the Board of Health, you're fine. So it's a totally different, that would be a mobile food unit, so a different category that we don't regulate in zoning.
If the Board of Health allowed a food truck as distinct from a bell ringing ice cream sort of rolling chocolate sundae type of vehicle, but a food truck to be parked in a residential neighborhood, that would be permitted if the Board of Health said that's fine with them. Is that correct?
No, I wouldn't say that's correct. I don't think you'll find a food truck parked in a residential district unless it were hired out for a private party. Where you're going to see them mostly is some of the breweries have food trucks there. Altruist Brewing has a food truck on the weekends. Rapscallion Brewing has a food truck. And we have seen Tractor Supply have food trucks come in for special events over there. And we did at one time have a hot dog cart down by the town common and a few of the other special events. You might find them at a ball game and then quickly pack up and leave, but they wouldn't be stationed in a residential neighborhood.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. Any other questions?
Yeah, this is Mike. So, Gene, Article 38, where you're adding the allowed use in that gateway district, so that just expands the availability and doesn't create additional limitations or convert something that's currently compliant to be non-compliant with the bylaw, correct?
Correct.
And same thing with Article 39, you're just eliminating the space so anybody that's currently compliant doesn't become non-compliant, and you're just opening it up for additional opportunities by taking that out.
Yes, correct.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Just a couple quick questions. It's okay for a developer to develop any food service that is above the minimum quality that it's allowed to. In other words, a fast food restaurant would not necessarily be limited to that category. It could go higher, right?
Oh, right. Absolutely. So fast food is not even allowed in all of the zoning districts, where restaurant is allowed in all of the zoning districts. And so restaurant, fast casual, and fast food all have a slightly different definition, where fast food allows for drive-through windows. That's one of the most significant differences. And fast casual, up until, if this passes, had a minimum square footage of 4,000, had to have higher quality food. And a restaurant is that what you think of as typical, dine-in service, sit-down meal, somebody's waiting on you at your table. So absolutely, you could have better quality restaurant.
And also, visual regulations have not been altered.
That's correct. All the landscaping. Oh, I'm sorry, Bruce.
Go ahead.
I was going to say all the architectural and landscaping regulations will stay in place that are in the bylaw currently.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
So Bruce's question put a thought into my mind. What happens in the case that something's authorized as fast casual but definitely becomes fast food? Are they now non-conforming, and would you be able to close them down?
Well, I guess it would depend on where it's located, Kevin. If they're in a district that also allows fast food, it really wouldn't be an issue. Mm-hmm. And most of the fast casual restaurants are slightly larger than what you see a typical fast food wanting to build. For instance, when we had the proposals for Taco Bell that didn't go forward, their square footage was only 1,760 square feet, which is pretty small. Panera, on the other hand, is, I think, about 4,600 square feet. So there's definite differences in the square footages of some of these facilities.
I guess I'm just wondering, is there some subjectivity here? But I guess not, because you did say, and I know that the industry sees them as three separate categories as well.
Right. We really tried, when we did the definitions a few years ago, to use industry standards. We did an awful lot of research to see what is the industry calling these things. We didn't just try to figure out what is Sturbridge thinking types of restaurants are. So we tried to be fairly consistent with language that, the restaurateurs themselves.
So Kevin, it's Gene's job to come up with bylaws and definitions that, place everything in a nice, neat box. It's pretty clear what fits and what doesn't. And then every day she's got developers and their representatives on the other side of the table trying to push the corners of that box around a little bit there. So you try to get it crystal clear, but as things evolve and interpretations, come at it, she either needs to make additional adjustments or address them at that particular time, I think.
Yeah, are there provisions, though, Gene, in our bylaws, if someone became a non-conforming use to take care of that? Or is that just something that we handle on an ad hoc basis?
I've never really seen it happen with a commercial use, to be honest with you. So I think I'd have to handle it on a case-by-case basis. If, they really can't become non-conforming because they couldn't convert to a use that's not allowed in that district. So say, for example, you had a fast casual restaurant in the commercial district. Well, fast food is also allowed. Potentially, you might even split that into two fast food businesses. But you'd have to come back to the planning board, and we'd make sure all standards are met. So I haven't seen it happen, and I don't really think it would be an issue, and we'd have to deal with it case by case if it tried to. Basically, they can't create a non-conforming use. It just wouldn't be allowed.
Okay. Are there any other questions or concerns related to Article, we're taking these together, but we'll start with 38.
Another quick question on 39. I notice now an establishment, and then to be stricken, that it's at least 4,000 square feet in area. So for fast casual now, there's no minimum?
That's correct. That's one of the two proposed changes. So now it would just say an establishment which serves food or beverages. Oh, and Kevin, you were asking for the definition. It's right in the Article 39.
Okay.
So yes, it would eliminate that square footage minimum in fast casual.
And that's in order to provide more curbside and pickup and delivery.
Well, I think more flexibility to use a smaller footprint if your particular restaurant brand doesn't really need 4,000 square feet. Maybe, 3,000 is your sweet spot, and 4,000 is just way too big.
Well, there's a lot of fast casuals that are opening just for takeout only now. They prep the better quality of food, but it's only for takeout.
Right. And you're going to see a lot of walk-up windows as well.
All right. So going to Article 38, if there are no more questions or comments related to that particular article, which is just adds fast food establishment to the Gateway District, can I get a motion to approve Article 38 as written?
So moved.
Kathy. Do I have a second?
Yeah. This is Mike, second.
Okay, Mike. All right. Any further discussion? All right, back to the roll call. Bruce.
Yes.
Mike.
Yes.
Joni.
Yes.
Larry.
Yes.
Kathy.
Yes.
Kevin's a yes. Jim.
Yes.
That's 7-0 in favor of the article as written.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
I think I've solved the feedback problem, but if you hear it again, please let me know.
Okay.
I think it was our dryer.
Okay. All right, so moving into Article 39, which is amending the definition of fast casual dining. Any further discussion for Article 39? All right, so I would entertain a motion to approve Article 39 as written.
So moved.
Kathy?
This is Mike, second.
Okay, thanks, Mike. Any further discussion, comments? All right, back to the roll. So Bruce,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
Joni,
Yes.
Larry,
Yes.
Kathy,
Yes.
Kevin, yes. Jim,
Yes.
that's 7-0 approval is written. Okay. Article 40.
Okay. So currently, there are a lot of flood map revisions underway in the state. We're actually working with the Quinnebog watershed right now for some more revisions to the Sturbridge map. And in addition, the Flood Hazard Management Program has kind of updated some of their requirements. So we are very lucky in Massachusetts that we have Joy Duperalt. She's our National Flood Insurance Program Coordinator and she works out of the Department of Conservation Recreation. And she has been carefully reviewing bylaws for all the communities in Massachusetts that belong to the flood insurance program, which I think there are about 341 of us that do. So she had reviewed the Sturbridge bylaw and recommended changes where she found areas that we really weren't meeting the standards, our definitions had fallen behind, our map numbers, they're not using the same numbering system. So she worked with us to create these amendments to bring us up to date so that we don't jeopardize our involvement in the flood hazard program. And as you know, we have many, many properties that are in the flood zone in Sturbridge. When they did the maps, revised the maps in 2011, I think we were successful in removing about 3,500 properties, but we still have a good 3,000 at least that are in the flood zone. So this is a very important bylaw for us to make sure that we don't jeopardize being part of that program and the insurance for our residents.
Okay. Now, will our GIS system actually, for people buying property and that, will you be able to drop this floodplain over the property so you could see what is considered?
We already do that. Yep. So we already do that. We have the flood zone as a layer on our GIS currently with the maps that were approved in 2011, and we've kind of set them at a transparency so that you can actually, if you use the aerial photos, you can see where the floodplain is, sort of in close proximity to where your structure is, because as you know, it doesn't matter if your land's in the flood zone, but if your home's in the flood zone, you need to have insurance. So we have done that. We worked really hard to get that working correctly back in 2011 because we actually were meeting with individual property owners as the maps were being changed. So, yep. And so once the maps change again, I don't really see a lot of big changes coming from for Sturbridge maps. That will probably be for the next annual town meeting. If it weren't for COVID, we'd probably be done now, but it's been a bit delayed.
Okay,
But at least we can update the bylaw.
Other question in particular to the language on page 32, you have a recreational vehicle. I just want to make sure when I read what you describe that using the 4 definitions under it, I think of that you really mean mobile home.
No, this is like a camper home, like a motor home, not a mobile home. Not like the Sturbridge Retirement Cooperative mobile home. This is more like a recreational vehicle, like you drive and you go to Yellowstone or wherever.
Okay, got you. All right, thank you for clarifying that.
You're welcome.
Are there any other questions related to this article from anybody?
So, Gene, this is Mike again. Does the new language and stuff in here place any new areas and properties in town within the floodplain district that may feel like they're being adversely impacted by this, or is this just adding language to help those that are currently classified within the floodplain district.
Yes, it's the second. It's adding language to help people that are in the floodplain district by making sure that the town's compliant with the National Flood Insurance Program standards. It doesn't change any mapped areas at this time.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
It makes me think of one question, Mike's point. Are we responsible for notifying a homeowner if they're in the floodplain, or is that something they need to find out on themselves?
They need to find out on their own, and generally what happens is their lender will require that they find out if they're in the flood zone, or will tell them they're in the flood zone, that they need to obtain insurance. What we did, though, however, the town went a step beyond in 2011 when our new maps were adopted, is we personally sent a letter to every single affected property owner. And I don't know if you remember it, but I remember it well. Myself and Aaron Jacques was the conservation agent at the time, and we worked evenings for many months meeting individually with property owners so they could come in, get information on the flood hazard program, and we provided them mapping, and we also provided them with information as to how they could be removed from the program. So we did our initial notification, but now as properties are sold, it's really the lenders that are taking care of that now.
Okay. Any other questions, comments, discussion related to Article 40? All right, hearing none then, I'll entertain a motion to approve the article as written.
So moved. This is Jim.
Okay. Do I have a second?
Second.
Kathy? Thank you. All right, back to the roll call. I think I'd have this memorized by now. Bruce?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Joni?
Yes.
Larry?
Yes.
Kathy?
Yes.
Kevin is a yes. And Jim?
Yes.
Okay, so that's 7-0 in favor. All right. Moving along to Article 41, the exemptions for earth removal.
So this is really a general bylaw, but I'm happy to provide information on this. So the general bylaw is one that is Article 41. The changes, there are minor changes to the zoning bylaw, and that's contained in the codification. But basically, Jeff and I worked together to make sure that the general bylaw and the zoning bylaw basically mirrored each other. And the Board of Selectmen was very much in wanting to put a cap on how much earth removal could be taken out under the exemptions, because prior to these proposed changes, it just said that if you had a valid building permit, you could just do earth removal. So we had a couple of situations in town in the past year where neighbors were a little upset when house construction really appeared to them to be an earth removal operation. So the Board of Selectmen wanted to put a cap of not to exceed 5,000 cubic yards without a permit from the Board of Selectmen. And this will still exempt anyone that's come to the planning board. For instance, we have a warehouse that's being built, cold storage facility, that is all approved through the planning board process. It wouldn't need to go to the Board of Selectmen for an earth removal permit. But if you are a home builder and you're building 6 houses in a row and you're going to take out 10,000 cubic yards, you really need to get a permit from the Board of Selectmen before you can begin that process. And it's really just a way of trying to safeguard the neighborhoods, maybe cut down on some complaints by abutters being notified when something like this is going to occur.
Okay. Any other questions or comments from anyone related to Article 41?
So, Gene, this is Mike. I'm going to go astray a little bit, but what if I were to, as part of the trail program along a railroad right-of-way, need to do some grading and remove some earth in order to get the proper, in order to put a multi-use path down that abandoned railway. Would you consider that earth removal that requires a permit?
If you are removing it off-site, excavating and removing off-site, then I would say it's earth removal. I would say if you are grading the land to create the trail and you have some cuts and fills, but it's all being used on site, you would not need an earth removal permit.
Okay.
Did I get your question right? Am
Sure,
I understanding what you're asking?
Yep. And it's again, not necessarily related to this, but since I had you and I'm dealing with this on my own here, I figured I'd take advantage of the opportunity. Thank you.
So to Mike's point, so what you're saying then is if I own a 50-acre piece of land, I could clear out 5,000 or more cubic feet area for one part of it as long as I transfer it to another part of it?
Well, we're not just playing in the dirt and digging a hole and putting it over here from that hole. So I think if you did that and we found out about it, we'd probably go out to ask you what you were doing. But more likely what's to happen is you're doing some significant landscaping on your property and you need to move some material around. I mean, 5,000 cubic yards is quite a bit. So I think you'd have to, number one, have a pretty big block of land with an awful lot of earth that you need to take out of there. So I'm not saying it couldn't happen, but I don't really see that happening as the norm. And if it did, we'd probably get a call and be right out there.
Okay. All right, then. Any other questions or comments related to Article 41?
Just a quick one. So it does eliminate the maximum here. There was previously a maximum, right, of 5,000?
No, that's what we're adding.
Adding the maximum.
Right.
You're adding the maximum.
Yes.
Yeah, if I may, Mr.
Sorry,
Chair, the change really is in section 148-2A1, where the second half of that sentence is added, provided that the amount of material to be removed will not exceed 5,000 cubic yards. That's really the change in this particular bylaw.
I see, yeah, I see it now. I'm sorry, I have trouble with some of the typing. It's
Right.
kind of small.
And then number 2 under there is added as well, but the limitation on the 5,000 cubic yard is added in number 1.
Got it. Thank you.
And Gene, just to go to one of Mike's other points, this is just a clarification. It's been said many times in the past, but I want it on the record again, that the town takes all of its bylaws and applies it to itself as well. It doesn't exempt itself.
Yes, we do. Much to the chagrin of some town administrators in the past. Not Jeff. I'm not talking about Jeff. When we've had other projects, and they said, "Gene, you're requiring what permit?"
No,
So yes, we do.
I wanted that clear. And opposition in the past.
And
Okay,
please,
if there's
and please
Go
remember,
ahead.
a lot of these projects go through the planning board process, Conservation Commission, all these other approvals. This is just if you're gonna move dirt, not otherwise regulated. If you're gonna move 5,000 yards, you gotta get a permit from the Board of Selectmen.
okay.
So, President, this is Mike.
Yep.
Bruce's question then is what's stirring this one here. So, Gene, why are we putting the whole? If we're only changing one or two little pieces in this bylaw section here, why are we bringing the entire text of the thing? We're only focusing on one sentence here and another one there. It almost puts a lot of information in the debate about the bylaw in general versus the 2 minor changes you want to make to it to town meeting.
Yeah, I think there are a few other minor language changes. It's not coming out as underlined on my copy, but I'm happy to work with Alex or Jeff Ken to pare this down because you're right, we don't need all of it in there.
An article does, just add, section 2, paragraph 3B, the following language, and then they just focus on the sentence or something. But
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, no, we can easily work on that to reduce it.
There is one consideration, which is that without all of the language, at least this committee wouldn't know if there was an inadvertent contradiction resulting from the change, the addition or the deletion.
I agree with Larry's position. I like to see the whole thing and just identify the changes so people know here's specifically what's either being struck out or added.
I think we just need to go in and fill in the underlines and strike throughs and.
Okay. All right. So I would now entertain a motion to approve it as written.
This is Mike. I'll make the motion.
Do I have a second?
Second.
This is Jim. Okay, Kathy.
No, Kathy got you, Jim. Okay.
Okay.
Thanks, Kathy. Okay. Back to the roll call. Bruce,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
Joni,
Yes.
Larry,
Yes.
Kathy,
Yes.
Kevin is a yes, and then Jim.
Yes.
Okay. So we'll call that approval as written and 7-0. All right. So everyone who was waiting, everyone else has been waiting for the CPC articles. I'm sorry for that last one. I just assumed it was zoning as well.
Oh,
We have another one though, the
Yeah, one
we do?
chickens.
Oh, the
Chicken.
chicken?
That's general bylaw, but that's one of mine. I was working with residents on that one.
Okay. And we fixed the word foul, so that's good. Okay. Article 42 then.
So, oh, sorry, you're waiting for me. So we
Yeah.
had a group of residents that had approached us actually prior to COVID. Actually, this is one of the most requested items we get is, can I have chickens on my land? I want to have a few chickens, have some eggs. Our bylaw currently does not allow it because we default to the state exemptions of having 5 acres for farming use. So we've considered having chickens of farming use. So what this does is allows residents to be able to have poultry or fowl on their property on really a case-by-case basis with working with the animal control officer. And we've provided guidance on, how many birds may be appropriate on what size lots and put in standards for removal of manure and odor control and vermin control and things like that. And actually this has been reviewed and cleaned up by town council as well to make it, I think, a little more enforceable.
So I guess my only question here is the definition of poultry and other fowl, because basically it's any bird used for food. Well, ostrich is used for food. If we're gonna, you could get people to, I guess, if we're gonna be specific about what we're gonna include, we should say everything else is X.
Well, you could take off the any bird used for food and just say poultry and fowl includes chicken, hen, turkey, goose, duck, blah, 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 and still exclude peacocks, roosters, or guinea fowl? Or you're saying exclude all others because of ostrich?
Ostrich, emus, there are other birds that get eaten.
Mm-hmm.
And I think an ostrich would have a hell of a lot bigger impact than the chicken.
Well, then you could say poultry and fowl for the purpose of this bylaw shall be limited to chicken, hen, turkey, goose, blah, blah, blah.
That
And
I
end it at squab.
Yep. So I would go with that amendment. Gene, you said it perfectly, but I didn't write it down.
Okay. For the purpose of this bylaw, so poultry and
Can we get everyone to mute who isn't talking?
Yeah. I was just going to ask that.
Okay, Gene, go ahead with the language again, please.
So it would just poultry and fowl, delete any bird used for food, and just say for the purpose of this bylaw shall be limited to chicken, hen, turkey, ... end it at squab, and then delete shall not include peacocks, roosters, or guinea fowl.
Right, okay. All right.
And then you don't need the definition of rooster, right?
Right.
What do you have against ostriches, Kevin?
Oh, I have nothing against ostrich. They make great eating. But I mean, if you're going to allow someone to have 10 of them on a half an acre, I think someone might notice.
I was gonna do that next.
Somebody might get hurt. Somebody might get hurt.
Yeah.
Mr. Chair, where did you have ostrich for food?
South Africa.
Wow.
And if you go down to Cabela's in East Hartford, their snack bar used to serve ostrich sandwich as well. So,
Is that right?
All right, moving on.
James,
Okay.
question.
I'm freezing. Yeah.
No. There's a lot of noise going on.
Kevin, might I ask Gene a question?
Yes, go ahead, Larry.
Thank you. I confess I do not know if there is still, and I'm not sure I'll get the title right, a farm advisory committee. And I realize that this focuses on residential. If there is still, well, is there a bearing one way or the other?
There's no bearing one way or the other. We do have a right to farm committee. However, we do not have enough members to actually have an active committee at this time. And this bylaw would not have a bearing on that.
So whether there is a quorum or not, this would have no bearing. This article would have no bearing on the responsibilities of that
Right.
committee. Okay, thank
Yes,
you.
because it will be the animal control officer. And actually, we did work with the animal control officer and the chief of police when we were drafting this as well.
Okay, thanks.
You're welcome.
Any other questions or comments?
Sure, this is my... Oh, go ahead, Kevin.
Kathy, go ahead. And then we'll go to
Okay. Gene, because this is a general bylaw and not a zoning bylaw, anyone who now has chickens or any of this would still have to get the permit, correct? They wouldn't be grandfathered, right?
Right, and the reality is if people have chickens now, many of them might not lawfully have them, I guess. We know that a lot of people have chickens.
Right.
So, yeah. So, yes, we would try to educate people and let them know that there's a permitting process, and it would probably be a very nominal fee permit.
Will this article come to roost on June 7th?
I hope so.
So, Mike, you had a question as well?
Yeah, it's along the line of Kathy's there. So we currently do not have a bylaw that allows or disallows poultry.
We disallows it.
Right. We don't have one that allows it. Basically, the zoning enforcement officer has always looked at it as you needed to have 5 acres and meet the agricultural exemption definition under the state statute, and then he would say you could have poultry. So this will change that and allow more people to have poultry.
So all those people who currently do have chickens, so you're saying, are doing so illegally because we don't have bylaws that allow them.
I'll say,
Some of them,
yes.
some of them may have large enough lots. I'm not familiar with all the cases in town, but we would work to make sure people try to come into compliance when we have the bylaws.
The ones I'm picturing are the 1 acre and less type lots, scattered throughout town where people have their sick chickens and none of their neighbors are complaining. So there's going to be a bunch of people who may not go to town meeting, may not be aware we just passed a bylaw, that have chickens running around the yard with no problems with the neighbors, that we'll find out they now have a bylaw that applies to them, right?
Yes.
Okay.
And from the way I understand from the animal inspector is that she actually has visited many of these locations to do her inspections, and she has a pretty good handle on who most of them are.
So Jean, so you're saying, so I just have a couple of questions. So anyone who has 5 acres or more, I guess, is perfectly within their rights to have chickens. Is that right? The way it is now?
So, yeah, so there's an agricultural exemption for farms and for small farms. For a small farm is 2 acres or more, and you have to make a certain amount of income off of your land, and then there's just kind of the blanket exemption for 5 acres. And our bylaw allows for agricultural uses on properties of 5 acres or more. So they don't have to meet the...
Right, so if I had 5 acres, I would be fine if I wanted to have a bunch of chickens.
Yeah.
Without having a farm, technically, quote unquote, a farm. So you mentioned that, so there's no permitting process now, and that's, you know, tons of people have chickens, but you also mentioned that the animal control officer, or I'm sorry, someone already does inspections. How are they doing inspections, or why are they doing inspections if these people don't have permits?
Because she does barn inspections for livestock and other animals. So I think in some cases it's just been other people have contacted her, or she's found out about other areas that, you know, people have some chickens. So, but there is a process. If you do have livestock or you have horses or other things, you do have to have your barns inspected. So that's what she's been reviewing.
Okay, so that's what you refer to when you say the inspections. It's someone who already has some sort of a hobby farm or 5 acres.
Yes.
Okay. And then, so it doesn't necessarily correlate to having a permit or not at the moment?
No, not at the moment.
Okay.
Okay, any other questions or comments? So,
And this is my so in follow up with that, but if some homeowner with a 1 acre or less property puts a chicken coop up in the backyard, and the neighbors aren't complaining about the chickens, you know, crossing the line and walking around and making noise and making odors, and everybody's happy, the animal control officer may not be aware of that, and that may not be on our list of known parcels and things that they inspect, right?
Right.
okay. Any other questions or comments?
Yeah, just a question, Gene. If there were a violation of the state humane laws, would the, I guess, MSPCA deal directly with the owner of the fowls or with the animal control officer first?
Larry, I don't know the answer to that question. That's a bit out of my area of expertise. Sorry.
Because, well, I guess this has gone to legal counsel, so, or it will. But I would think, I mean, there's no escaping a state law. The humane laws apply, do they not?
Well, right, but MSPCA is like cruelty to animals, so I can't answer the question that you're asking. You asked if the MSPCA would deal directly with the property owner or if they would go to the animal inspector if they had an issue, and I don't know. I'm assuming they'd probably reach out to the animal inspector, but if it was a really severe case, they may just go right to the property owner.
Because they do have, by contract with the state, armed law enforcement officers. That is, they enforce the state humane laws. And there have been some very ugly situations with spayed horses and the like.
Yes, I agree.
Okay. So, if there's no further discussion, what I would do here is I'd entertain a motion to amend the article to remove the definitions here of poultry and other fowl and rooster, and then add back in the language Gene quoted to us. And we may need to go back to the minutes to get it right. But, Gene, you want to try one more time with that language?
Yeah. So it would say poultry and other fowl, delete is any bird used for food, and then insert, for the purpose of this bylaw, shall be limited to chicken, hen, turkey, all the way through squab, and then delete the language after squab.
And we would also delete varieties include.
Yes.
And,
okay. So Kevin, this is Mike. I don't disagree with that change. I think it's good. It's process. So are we at a stage where who's ever drafting the warrant can make those changes and it's reflected in the actual warrant, and our motion is just to approve the article as written, or are we at the stage where we need to rewrite the article? Our motion being approve the following article and rewrite it with that language in there.
As far as I know, the warrant is closed, so we have the article, the language that's presented in front of us. So we would have to change it. But I mean, technically, the Board of Selectmen would have to reopen it, change the language, and close it again. Because this is a change to the article. It's not a typo.
Okay. I know last year we were making some of these changes as we went along up to the last minute, so I'm fine with that approach as well.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, Bruce.
I'm just curious about what was the impetus for this change? Was it that too many individual families were having chickens, or?
I think Gene answered that question earlier, but go ahead, Gene.
I apologize.
Many families wanted to have chickens, and there was not a mechanism to allow them to do that.
I see. Okay. And now, so it's in the public's favor here that they're going to have the process.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. So, so this is approved as amended. That's what we're looking for. So do I have I guess I'll make the motion to approve as amended since I brought it up.
Yeah, so Kevin, I think in the past the Finance Committee recommendation is to approve. Approve the following article, and then we just rewrite the article with the right language.
Actually, usually we do. We identify the change and approve as amended, and then leave I forget the actual language, but we leave the rest of it as written. So I can find the language in some of my earlier quotes. But our vote has been to approve it as we amended it, and then to otherwise leave it as written.
And we usually put it in the summary, so everybody's aware of it, and it's all above board. All good.
So, I mean, Larry, do you have, as the Robert's Rule of Orders guy, is approve as amended acceptable in this situation?
Yeah, sure.
All right, then. So then we go to the roll call here. Oh,
well, wait a minute,
sorry.
I'll second it. Did you already make the motion, Kev?
I did, yes.
Yes, you did.
I will second.
We have to vote to amend before, there are two steps, You vote to amend, and then you vote the amended document.
Oh, okay. All right, thanks, Larry. I missed that. So,
Yep.
So then the first part will be to vote the amended wording.
Yep. I'll make a motion to amend the article.
Well, we already have
Stated.
Tony and myself.
Well, okay. Then we have to vote on it.
Yeah, we have
that's
to vote.
right.
All right. So now we're going to vote on just making the amendment. And okay, so Bruce.
Yes.
Mike.
Yes.
Joni.
Yes.
Larry.
Yes.
Kathy.
Yes.
Kevin's a yes. Jim.
As a yes.
Okay, so now we have the amended language in the article, and now we vote on the article, Larry?
We vote on the article as amended.
Okay. So.
That distinguishes it from the original unamended.
Yep. Article 42.
What?
So now I need a second set of motions? First and second?
So moved.
So Joni
Second.
first, Jim second,
Jim second.
approve as amended. Okay. I'm a little rusty at this, so. Okay, so back to the roll call. Bruce?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Joni?
Yes.
I'm sorry, Joni, you got crushed there. What did you say?
Oh, I said yes.
Okay, thanks. Larry?
Yes.
Kathy?
Yes.
Kevin's a yes. And Jim?
Yes.
And 7-0 to approve as amended. And Joanne, wherever you are?
Yep.
Did I announce the vote for article, amending the wording?
No.
That was a 7-0 in favor to amend the wording as well, because I don't think I did. Thanks, Joanne. Okay. So now we're safe to go back to the CPC articles at the beginning. Jean, you good?
Yes, and I'm here for that article as well.
Yep, I got you. Let me roll back to the beginning now. Article 1. We still don't have the CPC report, so that one's still sitting on the sidelines. We took care of 3. That had a question. Debt service, we didn't have a question. Historic-wide the plan. Basically, you sent out a document identifying what the plan was for in the whole bit, and we were aware that part of it was matching grant funds, so we were all set with that. And so I'm just looking for what are we getting with the plan? Kind of explain a little bit.
So I sent you the whole grant proposal, which actually did have the table of contents that would be in the plan. So really, this is to evaluate our historic and cultural resources and assets in the community, document those, and create an action plan for protecting them. And I think, it will be really helpful for whether it's board members or staff to consider when we're looking at, maybe whether something needs to be preserved or not. We have to remember, not everything is necessarily worth saving. So this will allow us to bring in historic preservation experts to work with us. The Historical Commission's been working over the past 3 years to do a lot of inventory of our assets, and this is really the next step. So now that we've inventoried a lot of our assets, let's identify which ones are really unique and significant, figure out how to preserve them and what steps may need to be put into place, either in terms of bylaws or procedures to help preserve those assets, and let us understand what is not worth preserving, what is just maybe a feel-good building, like, oh, my Uncle Jim lived there 150 years ago, and so we can't let it go. So it's really kind of taking the emotion out of it and really putting it with, what are really significant things? Was it built by a significant architect? Was there a significant event there? Did a significant person live there? So it's, really documenting all of that in a plan that has actionable goals.
And inside of that plan, we'll have all the rationale for all the inclusion as well, so people can read it and understand my decisions.
Yes, it will.
All right. Any other questions related to the plan? I think.
If I may, Mr. Chair, Gene, do we need to talk about the amount of money in this one?
You fell out there, Jeff. We lost you.
I don't know what you said. I'm sorry.
Do we have to talk about the amount of money in this one?
Yes, we do, and I think that's why Barbara's here for CPC. So actually, the Massachusetts Historical Commission has been in touch, and we've been discussing the plan in our kickoff meeting. And what they've been finding is that the prices are coming in a bit higher than the $30,000. So their grant is $15,000 with the town's matching $15,000, but they're having a very difficult time to get under contract for $30,000. And they're actually recommending, if we have funds in our community preservation account, that we should think about appropriating $20,000 for this purpose. And I do believe the Board of Selectmen is going to, I might be putting words in their mouth, but I believe they're going to open the warrant to allow us to make this amendment. And Barbara is here from the CPC, I think, to talk specifically to that issue tonight.
So I have a question for Jeff before you get to that part of it. So Jeff, technically I see in this article it's still $15,000, but the Board of Selectmen voted 5-0 to support the 15, or did they support the 20 and they just didn't change the wording?
I think they voted it waiting for the new number. that they'll come back and adjust it.
So are you saying they're going to change the language in this warrant article?
Yeah, they'll reopen it and adjust it when they get the new number. Or they'll consider it.
Okay, and as far as you know, that you agree with Gene that it's 20,000?
I don't know if that's the number that the Historical Commission needs. I think that should be considered. I think the plan has value. I think it provides a roadmap and some guidance on what's important to the community, for the community, and it should be supported.
All right, Barbara, you wanted to...
That's like the second point.
Whoops.
I'm just saying that, I just wanted to say that at some point, if it is reopened, if the warrant is reopened, give the CPC a chance to look at the number and you know, take a vote on the new number. But would need to be done at some point.
Okay. So, Jeff, what's the time frame here? We're talking, you know, we haven't got a lot of time left to get this done.
Well, the board's meeting again Monday to review the line item budget and to continue the warrants. They're meeting again on May 4th. So as soon as the CPC can get together and come up with a new number.
So at this point, we're not ready to vote on this at all, by the sounds of it. Okay.
The CPC wouldn't be meeting normally until the second Monday, but if they need to, they could call a meeting.
The sooner.
You're going to have to.
This is Jim. Can I make a suggestion? That we at least come to an agreement as a finance committee that if this number goes to 20,000, we're not going to have a debate over it when that number is presented to us. Can we accept tonight that we will take it if it's 20,000? So we can at least put this to bed right away. To your point, Kevin, we don't have a lot of time.
You can move it. But technically, we have to vote the language that's here.
I understand. I'm just saying we can have a discussion tonight to see if we have a consensus that we will approve in the future the 20,000 with a minimum of discussion at that point, because time is short.
Well, I'm willing to entertain that, but it doesn't carry any official weight.
That's okay. It doesn't have to carry weight. It's common sense.
I'm not saying it's not, Jim, but, you know, unfortunately, the technicality is here.
I know, Kevin. All I'm saying is if you have questions and you object to the 20,000 figure, state them now, and we can...
I'm good with that. I have none. I'm fine with the 20,000.
Okay. I am, too. It's short money for a great project.
Mr. Chairman? Anyone else have any questions while all parties are here to talk about it?
Yeah, just one quick one. Is it possible that the application for the Preservation Fund, Historic Fund, will be increased from 15,000?
No, that's what we're saying, Bruce. So it's got to be increased.
No, I don't mean the town's portion. I mean
the grant.
The grant.
Grant.
Oh no, it's 15,000.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. So then we're talking of a total of 35,000 for the project.
Right.
20,000 from the town, 15,000 from Mass Historical.
Yes.
Yes.
That's my understanding. Has anyone got any serious concerns from the Finance Committee when this actually comes back? Because, I mean, I'm good with it, and Jim's good with it, but we can't actually do anything with it because it's not right. And usually I would amend it, but it's going up, and I can't go up. I can go down, but I can't go up. All right.
Maybe I'll find Kevin. This is Mike. Can you help me understand why we can't go up? I know in the past that some budget items the Finance Committee thought an extra position or increased hours for somebody is more, and we were recommending a number that was more than came through.
Yeah, that's the line item budget, Mike. Don't confuse that with a warrant article. The line item budget for the warrant article says very specifically to raise a sum of money, which has no cap. This is specifically saying $15,000.
Okay, and then if the selectmen are going to open to fix this one, maybe they can fix the one in the back as well that we were just talking about. My specific question is, I think this is a great program. I mean, I look at this and I hear what's going on, and it makes sense. And at $15,000 or $20,000, I don't have a problem with it. The question that's bugging me is, what happens if I'm a property owner who ends up on this list at the end, where somebody has determined that this property's got some historical significance and is worth preserving and protecting. And all of a sudden, am I having a whole bunch of constraints imposed on me on this parcel here, or there? What's the implication?
I think that's what this plan is to develop, because Gene has said earlier that with this plan, then they could develop the bylaws, either zoning or general, that they need to enforce the plan and put the plan into place. Gene, I'm sorry, I think I saw your hand.
Yeah, so this plan ultimately will not affect any properties. It will be when the town decides to take action to implement the goals of the plan. So maybe a recommendation might be to establish a local historic district, and your property may be in it. Well, if that's the case, you'll have your opportunity to speak about that and vote on that at a town meeting. So this plan will not take away anyone's rights. It's just a matter of trying to identify. It might be an entire neighborhood that's significant. Fiskdale, for instance, is actually a very significant neighborhood for us. And so I don't see this plan taking away anybody's rights. I see it as an education tool to educate the town in general, homeowners, property owners, staff, and board members. And then we'll provide a series of action steps we can take to help better preserve our assets.
And as you said, this Mike again, as you said, you're kind of narrowing the focus. It's not like every piece of property more than X years is old and therefore it's good. You're trying to come up with, of those, these are the ones that are important for the following reasons, and you're kind of giving us an inventory and a history. I'm okay with that plan at both 50 and 20.
Just because something's old doesn't mean it's historic.
Correct.
I agree.
Okay. So then, moving on.
I resent that, Jeff.
No. All right.
I
Well,
resent that remark.
Jim, you're one for the ages, though,
Oh, yeah, the old ages. Thank you.
So moving on to Article 8. Article 8, we'll have to adjust these votes because they're in the wrong order.
So, Kevin, do we want to vote this one as it is, and then if it does come back to 20, we can just, take action on it if it does come back? Versus
Or not,
yeah.
Article 5?
Yeah, sounds like it's coming back. I mean, Jeff, that's your plan, right? You're going to take this to the Board of Selectmen next Monday.
Well, I heard Board of Selectmen, I heard CPC, I heard a bunch of steps, but either way.
What was discussed is that the Board of Selectmen would reopen the warrant if the CPC met and recommended a higher amount of money.
Mr. Chair, why don't you go ahead and vote the 15, because if we run out of time, then the, wait a minute, the Historical Commission can go back to CPC and access the administrative funds.
Yep, okay.
It's a good idea, Jeff.
All right, then, let's go back to Article 5. I got to scroll back a little bit. All right, then. So can I get a motion to approve Article 5 as written?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to approve Article 5 as written.
Bruce? All right, do I have a second?
Second.
Kathy? All right, any further discussion? All right, back to the roll call. Bruce?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Tony?
Sorry, yes.
Larry?
Yes.
Kathy?
Yes.
Evan? Yes. Jim?
You bet, yes.
So 7-0 in favor of the article as written. All right.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kevin.
Thank you. Good night.
All right.
Thank you.
after Article 8, this is CPC again, $11,000 undesignated to Trails Master Plan.
Mr. Chair.
Kevin, I'm sorry.
Mr. Chairman, Brandon Goodman with the Trails Committee's on the call or on the meeting. He can take.
Okay. So, okay, go ahead, Brandon, fill us in. What are we updating and what are we getting out of it? Are we just getting a physical plan, a document like the master plan?
Yeah, so if you remember, we did the previous Trails Master Plan, I think it was about 8 years ago now, and that was a town-wide plan that was not only for it's multi-use trails, and also, bikeways on roads and waterways, canoeing on waterways, etc. And the focus has been over the past years, really to get people access to the open space that we have in town. And we're hitting a point now where, it needs to be updated. And so I think what we're asking is we have the Conway School, who we've met with a couple times, and, the plan we did 8 years ago was around $50,000, if I remember correctly. And this one would be $11,000 to have the school update that plan and make it current with, some of the newer needs we have in town, like better bikeways on streets and so on. So it would allow us to really just make the document current. It would reflect a lot of the different trail systems we have in town, what people are using in town and what people desire more in town as well. And just sort of really just make it a current document, if that makes sense.
So, okay, so it updates the document as far as all the changes that have been made since 2011. Is there any plan to change any the spirit or theory or rationale behind what's contained in the plan and how to implement it? Or is it just updating for what's been done?
I think, we talked about we have different categories of trails in that master plan that I think we would stick to. I think it would include a focus around how do we get better access to waterways and how do we work with the state and or town as roads are being improved. Do we get bike lanes painted on them and so on? So I think it's, if you think back, the original plan was not only to get people access to the open space in town, but it was to finish what we were calling the spine or the Riverlands property so you could ride, Westville to East Brimfield. And we're very close on that. And then the secondary piece of that was to then try and, figure out how to connect all the neighborhoods to that central spine, so that people could ride bikes to downtown, et cetera. And so that's where I think, there's a lot that can be updated in there, but then also it would just set requirements in terms of if we're missing certain areas of town where there should be better access to trails. And so to help us revise the priorities, at not only a town level, but then at a neighborhood and local level in town to get certain areas, to the network that aren't on there. So that's the big scheme.
Kevin, this is Mike. So just to be clear, it's not just to go into the 8-year-old plan and highlight and update what's been done over 8 years and then keep the plan going forward. It's also to take a look at, are our going forward priorities still the same today, or do we need to adjust it and come up with the moving forward plan so you have a roadmap on what to keep going? And when you come back to the Finance Committee year after year for funding to help advance this plan, we're doing it in accordance with this updated master plan.
It's a nice, eloquent summary, Mike. Yes.
Anybody else? Questions or comments?
I just want to say that I've come to really appreciate the amount of land that Sturbridge appropriates to this use. And I think a map that combines the ecology and the other aspects of the trail is really going to be helpful. And it's really going to be an asset to this town.
Thanks, Bruce. Yeah, that's another aspect that we're hoping to get to in these next stages, is to look at other ways that we can get young children and families out into the wilderness and understand more about what we have in the community. There's a lot of history that we haven't spent enough time, working with different committees to pull that history out on the properties that we have. And a lot of that is around, focusing on getting people out there and access to it. So.
Okay. Any other questions or comments?
Just a quick question. Well,
Go ahead, wait.
I had
go
a
ahead.
question. This is Jim. Will the plan identify those trails and those, the trails where people really have mobility issues? They're accessible to them and they can travel the trail, say, with assistance of in some cases, a wheelchair for that matter. But
Yes.
do we have any trails of that nature
Yes.
And will the plan incorporate that for their thank you.
It does. It does. We actually have that, Jim, already on our trails. One of the key things that we do is to make sure that there's a percentage of ADD of disability trails in the town. So each property we try to have a certain percentage and give access.
Great.
Was there
I
someone
know
else?
a lot of the Army Corps trails have that. So.
Yeah.
All right, so are we good to take a vote here then? All right, so first I'll need a motion to approve the article as written.
This is Mike.
I'll make the motion.
All right, Mike, you second?
Yes.
All right, great. Jim Waddick, Mike Hager. All right. Any further discussion? Okay, do the roll call. Bruce?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Joni?
Yes.
Barry?
Yes.
Kathy? Kathy? Oh,
Yes, sorry, I was muted. Yes.
That's okay. Evan is a yes, and Jim?
Yes.
Okay, so that's 7-0. Okay. We did 9, we've done, we need to do 10. So, Brandon, I think here what the question was is, there's $24,000, and what are we actually constructing here? What are we getting for it? So we would be able to answer that. We had new bridges, new buildings, just grooming trails, what?
Yeah, so 8,000 of it is to the Student Conservation Association. So each year we try to put $8,000 aside, and we bring in 5 young individuals who spend 10 days camping in Sturbridge, and they spend those 10 days, it's called a hitch, and they work on our trail system. So it's a very inexpensive way for us to get a mile or 2, or sometimes 3 or 4 miles of trail built and cleaned up and accessible. And it's varied from some areas they're doing, some days they'll build, or some days they'll build bridges and focus on, getting around wetlands. Other times they'll focus on, like Shattuck Road, they built that 2-mile loop, for kids who are trying to learn how to mount. So depending on what the focus is, we'll align that to, so this, the year we're talking about this, would be to expand trails, on properties like, actually, so this one's for lead mines. So the Sand Hill Trail and other trails that we need to have built that are single track to finish those up is what we're looking to do here.
With just that 8,000?
It's for the 10 days. So it would be, frankly, they'll come in and we'll pick that year the 2 or 3 trails that need additional work. And so for this one, I think we'll get, another half mile of Sand Hill done, and then we'll go in and clean up, and mark and boundary line a number of trails that we need to work on the property. So it's a huge bang for the buck in terms of how fast we can get trail work done.
Okay, so what are you doing with the other 16,000?
Yeah, that was my question.
Yeah, so that's 8. So the other the other set of 8,000 that we have, the way we're bucketing it up, is for Seven Ridges. So on Leadmine, the Seven Ridges Trail is a long, wide trail that we consider a trek trail that runs north to south. So if you start at Shattuck Road, you could go all the way to the pipeline south on the property. There are a couple bridges that we need to build to get across wetlands, and then we need to have some material brought in to fix some pieces of trail that are not yet conforming to our trail standards, and there's some washouts and so on. So that's what the next 8,000 is for. And
Which road was that again, Brandon? I'm sorry, I lost the name of it.
Yeah, Seven Ridges.
Seven Ridges, thank you.
Yeah, so on Leadmine, we've got, Leadmine and Seven Ridges are the two main trails that provide for multi-use. And the Seven Ridges has had a number of water issues that we need to resolve so that they can sustainably stay out on their own. And so that's what that 8,000 is going to be for, is material, work, and bridge construction.
Okay.
And then we have 5,000 put to Plimpton for bridge construction, and then just general trail building on that property. So signposts, permitting we need to do. There are a couple stream crossings we need to take care of and build those bridges, and so on. And then that gets us to 21,000, and there's an additional 3,000 in here for similar work that I just mentioned on Plimpton. We're going to do on Long Pond, Hines, and Riverlands, and in terms of wetlands crossings, trail markers, and then any material we need to bring in to make a trail, a trail bed more consistent or even.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the 24.
Beautiful.
8, 8, 5, and 3 is how we broke it up.
Okay. Anyone have any questions for Brandon? Kathy, go ahead.
Well, you do mention in here signage, which you only, I guess you mentioned trail markers. Now, I will confess that I could literally get lost very easily, even with a GPS, which always doesn't work in the woods. And I don't go on those trails a lot, but it seems like every time I have gone on, we have somehow gotten turned around and lost. And it seems like the signs or the trail markers, as if there could be more of them. We went somewhere else this weekend, and the trail markers it seemed like every other tree, and we always seemed to know where we were going. But sometimes on these trails, we just always seem to get turned around. Like I said, I get lost very easily. My entire life.
Honestly, I completely agree with you. On a couple properties, there are a few areas where we need to invest more time in marking trails and providing. One of the things we're working on right now is we're printing larger versions of the maps, put in the kiosks, and get the latest digital versions up on the website for people to download, which actually those are there, but we're going to print them for the kiosks. And then there's a couple areas like on Leadmine where we've been hesitant to mark too many trees because we were determining if we need to go around them around some wetlands and modify where the trail is. And we'll have probably resolved most of those issues this spring. And so you'll see a pretty aggressive push to have more painting on the trees so people are pretty clear on where they are. So I completely agree that there's a couple areas in that property that aren't clear.
Yeah, that would be great for people like me.
Oh, it's good. My wife and I had an argument the other day on if we were going to a trail section. I said, no, it's left. And she said, no, it's right. And it was, and that's what happens sometimes. So.
And sometimes it's fun. You get a new trail you haven't been on, you explore, but then you sort of get to your breaking point and like, okay, I'm ready to go now, and I don't quite know where I am. And
yeah. No, and that's the balance with painting trees is easy now, but it's when we have to put posts up and have intersection posts and and appropriate colors, you start to get to a point where, people, we had some people go in and mark the trails wrong, so we had to knock out different things. And so there's a lot of little things like that that you'll see improve this year in terms of just visibility on where to go and knowing where you are.
Mike?
Kevin, Mike, Brandon, other than the group of students that you're bringing in again this year, a lot of the other work is being done by volunteers?
Yes. Yeah, we're every year, this last year was even better than the previous year, so we're spending more and more time managing volunteers. So I can't remember the numbers from the annual report, but yes, we're getting more hours in volunteers than we are in terms of getting money from the town, which is how we've tried to run it.
And so at the end of the day, I'm sure, you have a lot more needs than just the $24,000, but if we didn't have the army of volunteers that your committee's been able to bring on board to do the work, the cost of maintaining and having these trails available to the community would be much higher, correct?
Correct. That's the true statement. And a lot of the money here goes to getting material into the right places. So Butch will get it to the locations we need, but we need to have a bucket full of funds for that material and stuff like that. So yes, a lot of it is supplies.
Okay. Any other questions or comments, Brendan, related to Article 10? Okay, then. So then I would accept the motion to approve Article 10 as written. Anybody?
This is Mike. I'll make the motion.
Thank you, Mike. Do I have a second?
Second.
Kathy? All right. So any further discussion? All right. On to the roll call. Bruce?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Tony?
Yes?
Larry?
Yes.
Kathy?
Yes.
Kevin is a yes. Jim? Jim?
Yes.
Okay. So that's 7 in favor. Great. Thank you.
Yes.
Excellent, Kevin. Hey, quick question, Kevin.
Sure.
Are we discussing the Fisk Hill property tonight?
No, that'll be taken up next week. I have not heard from the guy who wants the town to buy it. Because he still hasn't responded to my email. And we have the person who is a private party who wants to buy the property. The town refused it, coming to attend. It's supposed to take place 35 next Thursday, 29.
Okay. So I can take you through what the Trail Committee has proposed for that as well on that night.
All right. That'd be great. Okay. And Jim will be running the meeting that night as the vice chair. I can't attend.
Okay. Excellent. Well, I'll see you then. Thanks, everybody. Nice night.
Thank you.
Okay. I don't know which one of you should be called Joe. Maybe both of you, between Brian and Terry, because you guys have had a great patience sitting here waiting for us to get to you. So thank you. So the next place to go is Article 14, which is the Sturbridge Tourist Association, which is why Brian is here. And Brian, if you want to just give us an overview of what you plan to do with the budget, then we can get to some of it.
Okay, why don't you let Terry's the tourist coordinator, and then I can jump in anytime.
Okay. Thank you. Terry, you're on mute, just so you know.
Terry?
I'm here.
Terry.
We are approaching the start of the new fiscal year and are eagerly planning marketing and advertising for the fall. And we're happy here to talk about the funding. We have received a memo from Barbara in January, indicating that our total amount available projected would be 119,000, which would be down from 176 for the previous fiscal year. Are those numbers somewhat in alignment?
Yeah, you have, according to this, you have $119,785.
Okay. And then we allocate that through percentages for marketing and advertising, which is the major share of the funding.
Mm-hmm.
Percentage goes for salaries and wages to divide my salary between that and the town's general budget.
Right.
A line for employee benefits, and then a line for community support.
Okay.
So Terry,
Kevin-
why don't you talk a little bit about the community support functions and the marketing functions that the committee's working on?
This allows us to be the sponsor of events or to invest in events, the procurement of goods and services, installation of equipment, or other purchases unrelated to marketing that supports tourism in the town of Sturbridge.
Okay, can you give us, for instance, where the money goes?
We are currently considering a series of supporting a series of events this fall in October.
Like?
But I would defer to Brian in the sense that the events that we're considering now are going to come out of marketing and advertising.
Yeah. Kevin, I'll pick up on that.
Okay.
All right. As we know, 2020 was, gone. Everything that was planned never materialized because of COVID.
Right.
Now, going forward with this fiscal year coming up, we already have a number of applications of funding for events. The first one that actually takes place is the very end of June. It's a group that's never come to us before, but they've been at the Sturbridge Host for about 15 years now, and they have an event the end of June, and then they have another event there in October. So that's funding that we've approved coming out of this current budget, not fiscal 22.
Mm-hmm.
We're holding off on, obviously on anything for 2022 until we get approval of everything. But we have asked her, because she's the very first event, to make sure she gets us some hard numbers and to come back with us because we're really taking a hard look. Obviously, we want to make sure that we're spending money on the people who are generating room revenue for overnight stays for us, so that we can get this budget back up to snuff. Now, as Terry mentioned, there's a number of events that are going to take place in October. We have the Herb Fest, who's going to take place beginning of October. Again, this other event, the Dollhouse show, is going to have a show in October. The Chamber is coming back for the
Harvest Festival.
And then we have another event. They haven't come through with a proposal yet, but there's a group, the Fantastic group, which was with Sturbridge for probably about 5 years. And Kevin, I don't know if you were on STA when Fantastic came to us first, but we've helped them fund. They left Sturbridge to go to Boxford, to another hotel because of the condition of the Sturbridge Host. Now that the renovations and new ownership of the host has come to play, there's a lot of nice renovations that are going on there. So they're going to be coming back in November to Sturbridge. So we'll have a proposal for them for funding, and then we have one on January 1st of next year a antique show. So there are applicants that are coming forward with us. I am encouraged by a lot of things I hear from like the Public House, the Table 3 group, even the host about weddings that are coming back to the area, because you can start having larger weddings. So there's positive signs, but anything we're looking at, and I've really told the group, I've kind of been, I've been doing this for a long time, so I took a hard line with them, and I said, we have to really take a hard look at all these applicants that come through to make sure we're not just spending money just to give them money. We want to make sure it's a revenue generator, and also that we're going to get some information back from them. Because one of the things that Terry didn't tell you is we're working on a brand new website. Because that was one of the things that in our fall of 2019 3-year marketing plan, they recommended we have a new website separate from what's on the town's website. So Terry went through, and there were like 5 applicants for that, for the website design. He's working with the web designer now, and it's probably going to cost about $17,500. There's a yearly cost, but that's coming out of this present budget. So the FY21 budget, we took some of the money because we didn't have events to spend the money, and we spent it a lot on advertising. We did a big fall campaign with Channel 5 and also Boston.com and a few other areas that we got a lot of positive feedback. If you look at the occupancy rates levels that happened in the fall, you can see a little trend of a little bump, because we wanted people to know Sturbridge was open for business. And that's what we're trying to do. We're really trying to let people know that we're open for business. Because the village, Terry's talked to Christy Area at the village quite a bit. She's the marketing director. And their numbers through this whole pandemic and everything are starting to go up. So they're showing great attendance. They've shown a lot of initiative and a lot of programs. So there's a lot of encouraging signs for us. But what we're trying to do in 22 is spend some of this money on our own in advertising and promoting Sturbridge. We want people to know Sturbridge is here. It's not just Old Sturbridge Village. We talked about the trails. The trails are a big hit. Big hit. So, that's kind of what we're trying to do. And Terry's also working on social media. He just started the Facebook page. We had a Twitter page that Leon wanted us to have a long time ago, and it was never really much, but we just developed a Facebook page. So starting to get out there and starting to promote Sturbridge.
No, Brian, that's great. There's great initiative there. Lots of good ideas. I wanted to go back to the domain names, though, because at one point the STA did have its own domain name, and do you still have it? Does the town still own it?
So it's visitsturbridge.org, but under the new website, and this was actually recommended through the marketing, it kind of goes along with our branding, is experiencesturbridge.com.
Okay.
But at the last STA meeting, I told Terry, I says, do not give up the old domain name, because once you give up a domain name, it costs you a lot more money to get it back.
Yeah, no, it's easier to maintain it. I agree.
Yeah.
You could always have it refer you to your new one. So if someone had it,
if you remember, Kevin, when they had the Merchants of Sturbridge.
Yep.
Okay, we took that over, because we didn't want to lose that. It's now fallen by the wayside, but we did take that over at the time.
Right. Okay. Are there any other questions for Brian or Terry related to this budget? Tony, did you raise your hand? Yeah, all right.
I have a couple.
Yes, we're still doing it.
Hey, Brian, how are you?
Good, very good, Johnny. Thank you. I'm still here, and you know, I admire Kevin because this is not an easy process.
No, and welcome, Terry. Just a couple of my usual, right? So prior to Terry joining, we had an economic developer who you know did some really good things while he was here. And one of the things he had going on were those monthly meetings. I think they were monthly or breakfast or something like that.
Well, I think he started out monthly, and then we went quarterly because it was too much on a monthly basis. We went to a quarterly basis. So I think Terry and I have talked about that, and
Sorry, I didn't hear that last bit. Did you say you're going to continue that? Or?
Yeah. So that's one of the things we've talked about, Terry and I, and it's one of the things we want to initiate again. Those quarterly breakfast meetings.
Right.
Yeah, if I could.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
We just concluded a round table for all the hotel owners 2 weeks ago, and we briefed them on the annual tourism guide, the website development that we're working on. We had a speaker from Old Sturbridge Village talk about what they plan to do in the next 18 months to celebrate their 75th anniversary. And then probably maybe a month ago, we had another business event in which we brought the Discover Central Massachusetts regional tourism staff to come down and brief business owners and hotel owners about what they're doing for regional tourism going forward. And as Brian noted, we also plan to try to have sometime in May or maybe early June some kind of a traditional business breakfast in the sense that we might go visit the Pine Lake Resort RV Park and let everybody have a chance to see that facility and hear from the owner of it. So we are holding events, and we do have plans to have more going forward. What I also am working on is to have and we can do this virtually, is to have all of the small business service providers in the region, from Quabog CDC to SBA to the Clark University Small Business Development Center and the Regional Workforce Assistance people, and bring them to a virtual meeting and invite any and all businesses to come and listen to what exactly they can do to help businesses, whether it's grants, loans, technical assistance, finding employees, all those good things, and try to do that probably on an annual basis. So we have a lot of interesting ideas for events going forward, and we have had several events in the last month or so.
So Terry, when you have these events, do you record them so that they can, be referenced on the site, the website at some point?
Yes.
Yeah. Sorry, Johnny.
No, that's okay, Kev. I think those are great ideas. You mentioned the Clark Small Business Group, and I'll tell you, they're a wealth of information. And I know when I had my business in town, it would have been great to have what you're describing available, especially when it comes to finding employees or getting loans, et cetera, et cetera. That's a good idea. The other thing is, I hope you can really try and get some of the businesses in to participate, because, that's like pulling teeth sometimes, but I know that the ones that participate really benefit from it. So,
we've also, as Brian noted, we've been doing Twitter posts of 1 or 2 a week to try to send out that message. We coordinate it with the town's Facebook page, and we are trying to do it the same for our own Facebook page. And I've sent out numerous email blasts to all the business owners in the business community whenever a program or a grant, let me be accurate, whenever a program or a resource appears. There has been a grant program that's about to explode, which will be direct grants for restaurant owners or restaurants. And the SBA is about to unleash that in the next 2 weeks. And so for the past 4 or 5 weeks, I've sent out 3 email notices about that program coming out. So everybody who is a restaurant in the town is going to be aware that when it opens, they're going to want to try to be a part of it because they are direct grants. But you do talk about business participation. There are HUD grants of $10,000 available, and grants are hard to come by for small businesses. And Quabox CDC has asked me to advertise that to the business community, and we've done that twice, and there's still grants available. I mean, I think I don't know what the number is that we're eligible for, but they recently contacted me to say they still had grants available if businesses were interested. So it is interesting that you can say something's available, but they may not participate.
Right. Well, you'll find that out. But the other thing, the only other thing I wanted to ask is the community support budget. Previously, some of this money was set aside to help with businesses and their, was it advertising, Brian? You did some.
Yeah, kind of, Joni. What it kind of goes in hand is like if an applicant comes and the bulk of their proposal may be on advertising, but there may be some little items that are not really advertising, but they support the event or the organization who's doing something. That's kind of what we put in the community to support. Concerts on the Common, that's one of the ones that goes in the community support. Just, what Alex is proposing for the Harvest Festival, most of what she's looking at is going to go in community support. That's really what we consider a community event. It's not really an overnight stay event, but it can be an overnight stay event if played out right. And that's one of the things that we hope to do with the new website, is do a little bit more promotion of some of these events that are like community things, but really can turn out to be overnight stay events. Because the tourists coming to Sturbridge will see some of these things and say, hey, that's a great weekend to go to Sturbridge, Like
well, that's a big event. That's a big event, though.
Yeah, it's a big event, so it's,
Yeah. So are you guys going to start, you're going to continue with the farmers market? And please tell me that we're no longer paying for any of the phone services for the chamber. I know I bring that up every year.
Yeah. Farmers markets are great. I guess they're going to come to us for some funding for something, I think. That's what I heard.
So what type of support are you doing for the chamber to reflect your...
The only proposal we have right now, we're doing no other support for the chamber, just concerts on the Common. We do no other support. Last year they had, GeoFest. They decided not to do a GeoFest this year, but those were the only 2 events that we've been helping them with. No advertising, no other funding whatsoever that she's come to us for.
Great. Well, again, welcome, Terry.
Thank you.
Yep.
Nice chatting with you, Brian.
Any other questions from anybody else? Comments? Okay, I don't see anything then. All right, then I'll entertain a motion to approve this article as written.
So moved.
Joni, do I have a second?
Second.
All right, any further discussion? Roll call. Bruce?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes. I was trying to put myself on mute, sorry.
That's okay. Joni?
Yes.
Larry?
Yes.
Kathy?
Yes.
Devin is a yes, and Jim?
Yes.
Okay, so that's 7-0 to approve the article as written.
Right,
And
great.
Brian and Terry, thank you for your patience in coming and attending, and keep up the good work.
All right, thank you, Kevin, and thanks for, I admire what you're doing. I know it's very hard to do it. It's not easy.
Thank you.
All right, thank you very much.
Have a good night.
You. Have a good night.
So we're going to go backwards a little bit and go to Article 11, which is the town budget, which lets us go back and revisit the line item budget. So we're going to go back and try and see if we can get any of those missing line items full. So when I look at this, page 1 is done, page 2 is done, page 3 is taken care of, page 4 is good, page 5, 6. Now we get to page 7, where we get to police department salaries line, which is still open.
Would you like
Okay.
the number?
Yeah, do you have the number?
Yes, so the Board of Selectmen supported the second lieutenant position at their meeting on Tuesday night. So the number for salaries and wages will be $2,365,764.
764. Okay. Police department salaries and wages, and then overtime was going down by 11,000 something.
Yeah, so that will be 449,781.
449,781. Do you have the new overall total?
For the for salaries, is that what you want?
Yes.
2974701.
2974701. Okay. So that's just effectively adding in the second lieutenant's position, and that's a non-union management position where the police chief has complete jurisdiction over time and place of work.
As he does with all the positions.
Okay.
And then just as a reminder, this budget does not reflect collective bargaining increases because that contract is not yet settled.
Oh, thank you, Barbara.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
What's the emergency stipend?
The chief is...
That's because...
Go ahead.
Oh, go ahead, Jeff.
No, go ahead.
please go ahead.
Sorry. Go ahead.
Well, the chief is also the emergency management coordinator for the town of Sturbridge, so that's what the stipend is for that.
Right. So sorry, I thought we had a position for that.
We used to, and then it went away.
The chief is the emergency management, is the emergency manager. We have a very part-time position that's the emergency management coordinator. They do most of the paperwork, grant funding. They work with finance on administering grants. They handle the updating the plan. They coordinate the LEPC, but the chief is the actual emergency manager. So if under a state of emergency, the chief's in charge, but we have a position of about 11 hours a week that handles all the paperwork and the details.
Okay, so on that position then, so it used to be and honest to God, I forget his name. He was wonderful. He did the STA as well as this. He split it. Can't think of his name. Help me.
Kevin.
Anyway, he did it.
Kevin
Filchek, right. So he left, and you do have someone to take that position, is that right? But it's only 11 hours?
In order to, Kevin's position, Kevin Filchek, when he was here, the position of Economic Development and Tourism Coordinator and Emergency Management Coordinator were combined to create one full-time job. When Kevin left, there was nobody that we were going to find to do that again, so we recruited separately for the tourism economic development position as a full-time position, and the 11-hour or so a week position for the emergency management coordinator. So those are now bifurcated.
So my understanding, okay, so when you're talking FTEs, there was one, but the positions were two. I get it. But we have a description for that position.
We had two
And it was
separate
given-
job descriptions.
I understand that, and there was a salary associated with the other position. So I guess I thought that it was more than 11 hours.
The emergency management coordinator?
Yeah.
Not really.
Okay.
Well, it was as
all right,
many,
that's
wait a minute, it was
fine.
as many hours, you know, mix and match between the two roles, right? You kind of mixed and matched between the two roles. But when they were separated, it came out to be about 11 to 12 hours a week.
Okay, gotcha. Gotcha, no problem.
Any other questions or comments related to the adjusted police department personnel cost line? So we're just adding in the second lieutenant's position that was discussed at the Saturday meeting originally, and we have had in the past, and then in corresponding reduction in the overtime. So the new number again is $2,974,701. Do I have a motion to approve that number?
This is Mike. I'll make the motion that we recommend that to town meeting.
Okay. Do I have a second?
Jim seconds.
I'll second.
Okay. So Jim got you there, Larry. Thank you. So we will go now to the roll call. Bruce.
Yes.
Mike.
Yes.
Joni.
Yes.
Larry.
Yes.
Yes.
Kevin is a yes. And Jim.
Yes.
Okay, so that's 7-0. Great. Thank you. Let me just write that in here and record it. All right, the next one is the fire department personnel cost line item. And Barbara, are there numbers being adjusted there as well?
No, there's no adjustment. The board did support the deputy fire chief position at their meeting on Tuesday, and that was already funded in the numbers you have.
Okay. So we will be adding the deputy chief. And that's a non-union position as well?
Yes.
Now, one of the things I remember there is that one of the roles that this person would take on is being the inspector, right? Going and doing all the inspections of the different businesses that need to be done. Do we see that? Is there more than that?
Well, this position is the second in command. This position is the fire prevention officer, which is the title of that inspector. They're also going to work on training, coordinate the training amongst the different firefighters and EMTs. They are a boots on the ground position. If there's a vacancy or they're short-staffed in a crew, they'll go out on the fires and fight fire and respond to ambulance calls and all those other good things that they do.
Okay. So what does the chief actually do?
The same things, but right now when the chief's not there, there's no command structure outside the lieutenant. So this provides for, someone who is at the command level to be available when the chief's not available.
Okay. And is the idea that one will work the day shift and then the second one will work the for lack of a better term, the second shift, so that there's 16 hours a day management present.
I missed some of that. Kevin, go ahead.
Well, so the chief will be working, let's call it the first shift. Will this second level be in the second shift so that they're basically management position for 16 hours a day?
Well, not really. There'll be some differences in their hours, but the plan review in dealing with the businesses is mainly a weekday type operation. So
Okay.
there'll be some differences in the hours between the chief and the deputy chief, but it'll be a daytime gig. Maybe not the same hours as the chief, but maybe later in the day, but still daytime.
So, since we haven't, even when we had an inspector, I know our inspections were kind of lagging. Will this allow us to catch up and get to where we can get all the businesses done in a single year, in each fiscal year?
We intend to have the fire prevention officer meet the statutory guidelines of the fire inspections, yes.
Okay. Anybody else? Any questions or comments related to the fire department personnel costs?
So Barbara, just so I'm clear, because maybe my notes are the other way. The selectmen approved the reclassification of one of the positions to create this deputy chief position, but there's no change in the budget because it was, I don't know, it was anticipated. I thought there were going to be some budget changes if this thing went through. It sounds like there was enough money in there to, even with the classification.
It was built on the deputy chief's position being included.
Okay, so unlike the police department that didn't have the second lieutenant built into it.
Right, there wasn't a vacancy in the police department when we developed that budget to make this same adjustment that the fire department's making.
Okay.
Any other questions or comments? All right, hearing none. Do I have a motion to support the amount of $1,582,257?
So moved.
Is that Bruce? I'm sorry, I talked to you. Bruce?
Yep.
Do I have a second?
Yes.
Second.
I'm going to go with Kathy because I didn't quite hear who said yes. So I have the first and the second. The roll call. Bruce?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Joni?
Yes.
Ari?
Yes.
Kathy?
Yes.
Kevin is a yes. And Jim?
Yes.
All right, so that's 7-0 in that. So 1582257. All right. So just quickly going through the rest. 8's done. 9's done. We have community health on line 57 that I don't have a vote for.
Yeah, so, I mean, I'll move the motion to approve it, Kevin, but to be honest, I still have not connected with Linda, and I know it's just $1,000, but I'm still committed to finding out what that increase is for.
Okay.
But I don't want to hold up any approvals or anything. So if it's okay with everyone, and I promise to get back when I hear from Linda, I would like to approve the $5,000.
Okay, do I have a second? Anybody? Happy?
Second.
Okay. All right. So first and second for $5,000. Bruce?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Tony?
Yes.
Larry?
Yes.
Kathy?
Yes.
Kevin is a yes, and Jim?
Yes.
Okay, so that's approved 7-0 for $5,000. All right, keep on rolling. So we're page 11. I have everything taken care of. Same with page 12. And then page 13 is good, so that gets us to the entire line item budget, which we now have voted. So that's great. So just to kind of summarize in a nutshell what the line item budget gets us is the implementation of the new salary structure. And it's starting in this fiscal year, but definitely take full shape next year. We add the second lieutenant to the police department, and then we add a deputy fire chief. And that's about the highlights of the entire line item budget. Everything else is pretty much operations as usual. Jeff, do you agree with that summarization?
There's probably more in there, but those are the highlights, yes.
All right then. So now that we've...
Kevin, Jeff, so did any other positions as part of that salary adjust hours? Were there some people that were working like 30 hours that we brought full time, or 35? You know, or we added a couple extra hours just to get into a full time as part of the salary piece, or
No.
not as part. Okay.
No, everybody was at 35. There are a couple positions that, well, for instance, the admin in the conservation department, they were getting some money out of the wetlands fund. We've shifted that back to the general fund, but we've not changed the number of overall hours for that position.
Okay.
Okay, so that brings us back to Article 11, which is the town budget, which is all the line items we have now voted. So do I have a motion to approve Article 11 as written?
This is Mike. I'll make the motion.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Larry? Okay, any comments, questions, or discussion? All right, back to the roll call. Bruce?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Joni?
Yes?
Larry?
Yes.
Kathy?
Yes.
Kevin is a yes. Jim?
Yes.
Article 7 is approved 7-0. Article 11, I'm sorry. Approved 7-0. All right, let's see. We did 12. We did 13. There are 14 earlier tonight. 15. 16. 17. 18 is good. So 19 is still, I guess, to be discussed, depending on where we end up. I would just point everyone to like one of the most important pieces of information in your packet, which is on page E3. And once we have some numbers there, we'll figure out where we're going. But it basically goes to show you that we're basically funding our operating budget from our free cash position. And if we do this, it's even more free cash used to fund. So just to point that out. Article
Good point to make, by the way.
Article 20, revaluation, interim adjustments. This is more or less a housekeeping article. We've done this many, many times. So do I have a motion to approve Article 20 as written?
So moved, Jim.
Okay. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second, Larry.
Oh, no, I got Kathy. I'm sorry. Article 20, approve as written, Jim and Kathy. All right. Do I roll call? Let me just get this so I can click it faster. Bruce?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Joni? Joni?
Yes?
Oh. Larry?
Yes.
Kathy?
Yes.
Kevin is a yes. Jim?
Yes.
Okay, that's 7-0 to approve as written. Article 21, that's another housekeeping. It's basically setting the spending limits for the, the revolving funds that we have. Have any been adjusted? That's just my first general question. Or are they the same as last year? And I'll be honest, I didn't go look yet.
Last year.
Okay, I'll go look.
Same as last year, Kevin.
I've got I couldn't understand that comment.
Oh, it's Barbara, same as last year.
Oh, great. Thank you, Barbara. Okay. So then, can I get a motion to approve Article 21 is written?
So moved.
Kathy, do I have a second?
Mike, yes. I'll second.
No, I got Mike. Okay. All right. Any discussion? Hearing none. Bruce?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Tony?
Yes.
Larry?
Yes.
Kathy?
Yes.
Evan is a yes, and Jim?
Yes.
7-0 to approve the article is written. Beautiful. All right. Article 22 is the water department budget. That still looks like it needs to have some numbers figured out in it. So I guess we'll skip over that for the viewpoint. Same thing with sewer. Sewer project debt, however, Article 24, that is something we can vote. That we have to pay. So Article 24, do I have a motion to approve the article as written?
This is Jim, so moved.
Okay, do I have, who seconded?
Mike.
Mike, thank you. Any further questions, comments, discussions? All right. Bruce?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Joni?
Yes.
Harry?
Yes.
Kathy?
Yes.
Evan is a yes, and Jim Waddick?
Yes.
Yes? Okay, so that's 7-0 in favor of approving the article as written. So 25, pipe coatings maintenance program. Sewer is coming out of the sewer, but someone just want to, what we're talking about, because I know it, I'm not sure the language in the summary is actually right. Both tertiary clarifies as well. I mean,
That, Kevin, that word should be clarifiers. There should be an R before the S. It's a device.
okay, yeah, that's what I was thinking. No, that's great. So this money is coming out of the sewer reserve fund balance. So Barbara, if we take this out of there, where are we left as far as, reserve fund balance in the sewer budget? We lose her? Jeff, do you know the answer to that?
I'm just looking it up. Give me a second.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay. I don't know all the numbers off the top of my head.
Yeah, it'd be impressive if you did.
But you know most of them.
No.
It's about 1,852,000.
Okay. Right.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I think I would take the word out of the first line of summary.
That's okay. We can control that, Bruce. So someone make note of that, and then we'll clear up the summary box.
Okay, thank you.
The summary box belongs to us. The only language that belongs on this document that belongs to somebody else is 2C through their 2. Then other than that, it's ours. Okay. So Any further questions related to Article 25?
Kevin, to Bruce's point there, where he said take out the word "the," I think the word "the" should go after the word "both."
Yeah, I could do that too.
Tertiary clarifies as well as the interior still. So that's the two words they just flipped.
Yep. You got that there?
Take the word "and" after between tank and associated as well. So this is Mike. Sewer reserve fund transfer. So you're collecting the rates, you're paying the sewer expenses. Part of those rates puts money back into this fund that we draw out to pay these sewer bills, and that's all part of the. You're also doing a rate study to make sure that the cost of operating a system, are recovered in rates, and you're collecting enough money to keep the system going and making repairs such as this, as well as ongoing operations and maintenance. Correct?
So Barbara, I guess the question is there a study going on to make sure our rates are set correctly?
Yes.
And that's sewer and water, correct, Jeff? That the answer is yes to?
Yes, sewer and water.
So Mike, does that answer your question fully?
And so however much we're drawing down here, we haven't studied the fund balance and figured out past draws, but you're comfortable, Jeff, you're comfortable that we're drawing out an appropriate amount of money in this fund to have enough there to meet future needs until this rate study is complete and we move forward, right?
I don't know about that, but I know if we don't coat these tanks, it's going to be a bigger problem. It's been delayed. It needs to be done. The coatings are worn off, and this work needs to be done.
I'm okay with that too. Thank you.
Okay.
So Jeff, I guess just one thing
So
I'm sure you're all.
Mr. Chair, I need to interrupt. This is the first. This program was originally going to be like $900,000. We broke it up into 3 years worth of work.
Okay. Good. Part 1 of 3. Excellent. I guess as part of these rate reviews, in the long run, and I'm sure you've already thought of this, but I'll just suggest it anyways. Will we be coming up with policies similar to the town's general financial policies specific to water and sewer, so that so much percentage goes into, reserve fund balance, so much goes into the different categories with these specific special revenue funds?
It really is going to depend on what the rates are. They have to be sustainable. They have to be affordable. People have to have the ability to pay them. So it'd be great to have those kind of allocation formulas, but we really have to see what the recommendations are.
Yeah, but historically, and I'm sure you're aware of this, we've been subsidizing water and sewer ratepayers for a very, very long time, so they've never really ever once paid the full cost of running the system. So it'd be good to know what that real number is and then inform people. If you can want the water and sewer service at the levels you're at, this is what it really costs to run the system.
I lost half of that. Bruce, you gotta be on mute, buddy.
Okay, I did catch it. I don't understand why you think we're subsidizing water and sewer.
We always, I have to go back to some of the numbers and how they exactly, I'd have to go back to when I was chair last time, but there were numbers in there that support basically reducing that cost.
Kevin, I don't know, yesterday, I don't know what the policy has been. I know that the Board of Selectmen want to do a water and sewer rate study to make sure that our systems are sustainable. We have a wastewater plant that is treating 40% of its total capacity. If you look at the next article, we're investing in getting new customers based upon building our own infrastructure. So I think there's a lot of things going on with the water and sewer system that is going to provide for its sustainability and enhance the customer service experience in the town.
Perfect. Because really the only way is to increase the base. So that's perfect. All right, so Article 20.
It's just like taxes. You don't need more taxes, you need more taxpayers, right?
Exactly. Article 25, the pipe coating. So here, we're looking for a motion to approve the article as written.
I'll make the motion. It's Jim.
Jim, do I have a second?
It's Mike. Kathy?
Kathy's got it, yeah. All right, any further discussion? All those in favor? Oh, I can't do it that way. I've got to go back to my roll call. Bruce?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Joni?
Yes.
Barry?
Yes.
Kathy?
Yes.
Was that a no or a yes?
It was a yes.
Oh, thank you. Kevin is a yes. Jim?
Yes.
Okay, so it's 7-0. And I put it ending at 9:30, so a couple more of these, and then our meeting minutes, and then we'll call it a wrap. But we still got to get through all of this stuff. There's a lot here. So Article 26 is basically, I think, what Jeff was alluding to, is getting those people who are now having all their sewage sent off to Southbridge, and we're paying them a yearly fee to get their sewage basically sent to our own plant.
One of the things, a consideration here may be, and I don't, well, before I bring it up, let me talk to Barbara about it next week. Because we're talking about...
Would it change?
I would, I think I still want to do this project, but if we're concerned about dropping that fund balance too low, we may have to shift sources. So, yeah.
Okay, I know that, in the past, the prior DPW director had always talked about maintaining $1 million in the reserve fund as the base, because anything that goes wrong here is a big ticket item. It's not $2,000 or $3,000. It's tens of thousands, if not six figures. And but that goes to saying is you can't always have a fixed number. It's going to adjust based on time and the number of users. So, but I still see, based on this, we did 260, which gets us down to basically 158, and then this is going to take us 138, and then 90,000 in the next one is 127. So you're still dealing okay.
Kevin, I think if we could just maybe let Jeff and I talk about a few things next week and regroup.
Sure.
On this. Thank you.
No problems. All right. Is Article 27 then safe?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay. So Article 27, inflow and infiltration study. Do I have a motion to approve that as written?
So moved.
This is Jim. I'll second.
Jim seconds. Any further questions, comments, or discussions here?
I just have one. So
Sure.
is this is just for the study of the repairs, or study and repairs?
This
I'm not exactly sure what
this every year you pick a piece of town to review their pipe conditions. You TV it, so that's the study piece, and then you go fix it.
So this is
Just
two
the
for the
study.
part.
So this
So this
is
oh, it's just the study.
no, this is study and repair. This is,
Yeah, okay.
find out what's broken, then you go fix it.
Okay, so do we know it's gonna be 90,000 or?
This is a 10-year program. This is $1 million deal throughout the whole system. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, gotcha.
So part 1 of 10. Okay.
So you scope it, you don't find any problem, you got money left over, you can do a little bit more during the year. If you find some problems, you stop at $90,000 worth of repairs, pick up the following year.
Pretty much. Yeah.
It's the sewer equivalent to the road program. Okay.
Yeah, and we can put a video online if you want, I guess, right?
All right. So I have a first and second. So Bruce,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
Tony,
Yes?
Larry,
Yes.
Kathy,
Yes.
Evan is a yes. Jim.
Yes,
Okay, so it's 7-0.
a lot of background noise.
You're a little delayed, Jim. I have to say, your motion breaks up every now and then.
I'm getting a lot of feedback from my plugs from background noise. Somebody's got an open, mic.
Article 28 is a TIF agreement. So, we've done these in the past, and this is the new cold storage facility that's going into the technology park.
No, this one's going at 90 Charlton Road. This is a second
Oh, this is the one.
There's two. This is the second one.
Oh, okay. Interesting. Any questions, comments?
So, Kevin, this is Mike. I'm all for bringing more businesses into towns, but Jeff, you're a finance guy. Why do we want to give up a fair amount of tax revenue in the early part of this to attract this particular business? Where's the benefit to us?
Well, we get 19 to 20 good jobs in town, plus the amount of personal property, which is not exempt, is pretty significant. So we do still realize a positive economic gain from, even though we are giving up a portion of the taxes for a period of time.
At this point, what's on that property? Is it just empty?
It's empty ground.
Yeah, so you're getting use out of that land too that is actually designated for use. You used to have a problem getting industrial people here.
So we give up some money and a fair amount of taxes early on, but we start breathing life into this, and over the long term, we've got a developed property that continues to bring incremental revenue.
You don't give it all up, Mike. They're paying some tax right now, and they still pay that same tax. It's the incremental improvement that we're aiding 100%.
I'm with you.
Exactly right, Kevin.
But you're also getting all the personal property tax, and with this facility, the equipment, it's pretty significant.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's good for us.
Well, I got to disagree a little bit. The first year is 100%.
It's 100% of the improvement.
Right.
So right now it's empty land. So if they're paying $50,000 in property taxes right now, they still pay $50,000 in property taxes in year one. It's just that if it should have gone to $200,000 because of the improvement, they will not pay any of that additional $150,000.
Right, so they won't pay any additional.
Right, but it's not like we're getting rid of all of it. But Jeff is right too, that the personal property part of it is still included, and they would pay on that. This is just.
I like that. I like it. I just wanted to point out the first year was 100%.
Okay. Any other questions or comments from anyone related to this? Okay, then. Can I have a motion to approve the article as written?
So,
Kathy? Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Jim? Okay. Any further discussion? Bruce?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Jody?
Yes.
Larry?
Yes.
Kathy?
Yes.
Kevin is a yes. Jim?
Yes.
So it's 7-0 to approve the article is written. Right. 29.
The text box just stops in the middle of a sentence at the end.
But not the new one, Larry. I think you're working off the old document.
Okay, sorry, thank you.
So Kevin, this is Mike. We talked about this for quite a while. We know there's some problems, and we know there's some, proposed things in the 5-year capital plan, but it'd be nice to hear from Jeff after the study's done, the magnitude of a radio system upgrade that we think, or at least we're carrying in the capital plan to move forward with here.
What's the question? What do you think this is going to cost?
Yep.
Between $3 and $4 million.
Yep.
I just put one in Weathersfield. You don't have the same number of users here that you do in Weathersfield, but you're going to have to build tower capacity here. And we spent $3.6 million in Weathersfield for the same kind of overhaul.
Yep.
So, is there a word missing in the actual language of the article? It says,
There should be the word, it should say to design.
Should it? That's what I'm wondering. Is it to design and support?
To design?
Well, it says to see if the town will vote from free cash to sum up, and then design and support. I mean, there seems like there's something missing here. Is it we're hiring a consultant?
Yeah, probably for design and support. Yeah, that's fine.
Is it the word to, you think, or for? That's what I'm sorry.
Well,
For design. Okay, I get it now. All right. FOR.
I would prefer to put for technical support for the implementation of the radio system. Yeah.
So, to design and for technical support?
I would say for technical support during the design, and because this consultant's going to tell us what we need, and then we're going to go out to the radio.
So why don't we? Well, I mean, obviously the language needs to be rewritten. Can you submit this new language if the selectmen won't open it?
We'll get it to you next time. We'll get new language to you next time.
Perfect. All right. So we'll break here as far as going through the votes, and we'll take care of the.
Kevin,
Yep.
just to save Jeff some questions on the road. If you're going to come back to say, just tie this to technical support for implementation, it suggests to me that we're implementing that $3 to $4 million.
Mike, I missed all of that. Someone's moving around, so.
I think if you come back and just say the money is for technical support for implementation, it suggests that we are moving forward that $3 to $4 million implementation plan, which is not really before voters yet. So it almost feels like the cart's before the horse. I understood design and support of the plan. That's what I thought that this was doing. So
I don't understand. Sorry.
Well, I guess Mike and myself are suffering from the same thing. We don't really understand from the language in the article what we're trying to do.
This consultant's going to evaluate what we need for a 21st century communication system, and then write the RFP for the vendors to respond to, then be our representative during the selection process and the installation and implementation process. That's what this guy or this group will do. They are our representative during the entire process to help not design, but provide the specifications for a new radio system, and then be our representative as it's built and implemented. And then validate that it's effective.
All right, so we need to come up with language that basically says all of that. Because this doesn't.
I don't know.
And I see what you're looking for someone for long term, but you don't quite get to the implementation without another very large article that has to get approved and may or may not get approved at town meeting. So, but everything leading up to that, I don't have an issue with there. So.
Leading up to what?
You know, you need to go through the initial phases, design some of your original stuff to be able to figure out how much what system you're putting in, how much it's going to cost. We don't have the money to put the system in.
Right.
All right, so we'll let you come back with the other wording. We'll go from there.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So we do have a couple of sets of minutes we need to address. What did I do with them? We have minutes from 4/8 and 4/15. So we'll take up the minutes of first. Gotcha. All right. Everyone take a look. Is there anything that needs a modification or adjustment? Jim, you good with the minutes?
I thought everything looked great.
I read 4/8 before. I make a motion to accept the minutes from 4/8 as presented.
Okay.
I second, Kev.
Yep, gotcha, Joni. Minutes of 4/8 approved as written.
Hey, Kevin?
Hang on one second. Let me just finish noting this. JW and JL. Go ahead. Who had question?
This is Mike. So the only question I raise is, bottom of page 2, where we got into the motion where we lumped multiple line items in there. We've got, motion where we list all the individual things that we, and the roll call vote. And then below that, it seems like we're repeating the motions and the votes again. That's just a little, I would have thought it was, line 4, X dollars, or we could just live with the overall motion there. But it just, the way this was presented, it seemed like motions were in there twice.
Yeah, I can see what you're saying. I actually like this detail, though, especially for people who are going to be, reviewing it without watching the minutes. I mean, I'd rather give, someone looking at our minutes all the details we can possibly give them.
I agree. It indicates what went on in the meeting, and I think if somebody were looking at that, understanding it was a Zoom call and you needed to do the roll call, and we've been doing this for the past year and a half.
Okay. I mean, if anyone else have Mike's concern?
Well, I think we should be less concerned with form than we are with substance. And to Joni's point, if you read it and you understand it better in this format, then that's probably the objective, because someone who wasn't there or doesn't watch the meeting in a replay will have a better understanding of what happened than otherwise.
All right, so I have a first and a second to approve it as written. Hearing no other comments or discussion, we'll go through the roll call. Bruce?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Okay, Joni?
Yes.
Larry?
Yes.
Kathy?
Yes.
Evan is a yes, and Jim? Jim?
Yes.
Oh, 7-0. Okay, so the minutes of 4:15. Come on, Kevin, get over there. Okay.
So I did read them. I'll make the motion to accept it as presented.
A second.
Mike, that was Joni again?
Was.
Okay, thank you. Jim Audick, JL. Any further comments or just 4:15 set of minutes? Joanne, they look great, so thank you. All right, so then we're going into roll call. Bruce?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Joni?
Yes.
Larry?
Abstain.
Abstain. Okay, that's an A. All right, Kathy?
Yes.
Kevin? Yes. Jim?
Yes.
All right, so that's 6-0-1. All right, so going through new business. Anybody got anything they need to bring up and discuss tonight? All right, into old business. I guess the only old business I have is the, I still haven't got a respond from the Peter Zay there who wanted to represent the the town's purchase of the property on Fisk Hill and off of Old Farm Road. But I think I heard that Brendan said he would talk to that too, so I guess he's another proponent who could represent that person. We still have Josh Wages on the hook for coming to that meeting as well to represent his position. I see Jeff nodding, so that's good. Other than that, anyone else hold business?
I have a comment on that, Kevin, just for the information for the members of the Finance Committee. As you know, I watch a lot of meetings and I read the minutes, and I just wanted everyone to know that the Planning Board voted unanimously not to recommend the purchase of the Fisk Hill properties. Okay, it's in the minutes. And that the Conservation Commission, with the exception of, and you can read it if you want, with the exception of requesting from potential buyer an easement that would connect it to Hall Road, they voted 4-1 not to exercise the right of first refusal either. So there's two boards that voted against pursuing the right of the first right of refusal. That's just informational, that but I think we ought to know how the other committees and boards is presenting it. Yes, George.
No, sorry, that's very important, and a couple things on that. So are you saying that these two boards are not in favor of the town exercising?
They're recommending that we don't exercise our first right of refusal. At least that's what it says in the minutes of their meetings. There's a vote, and on the planning board, I believe it was 6-0, and on the Conservation Committee, I believe it was 4-1, to not exercise the right of first refusal on those properties.
Okay, and then Kevin,
that doesn't mean we can't vote for it, but that's what they did.
I think the Conservation Commission...
I can't hear you, too.
The Conservation Commission, I think, later revised their recommendation to the Board of Selectmen.
If they did, Jeff, then it's because the minutes aren't printed yet. You know, I read them as soon as they come out if I don't watch the meeting. So I can't speak to that, but I take your word for it if they revised it. But sometimes the minutes are like 2 or 3 meetings behind on a lot of these meetings.
Joni, you have an old business point you want to make?
I did. I wanted to just talk a little bit more about this. So next week, so you're not going to be here, Kevin, correct?
I am not, correct.
So, so Jim, you'll be up. So, who is coming before us to talk about this? Because I really want to hear the person who wants to have their family home there. I want that person here. Okay.
He is. He's coming.
I believe that's who's coming. The person who hasn't responded to Kevin is the person who's an advocate for the town to exercise the option. So.
Right, but there are other town boards who I think are going to be here to do that. Based on
Okay, and that's what I was going to ask. This person that you're mentioning that you didn't hear back from, Brendan tonight said he would come. So it sounds like there's different boards that want to talk about this.
Yeah, Trails, I believe, voted or are interested in obviously obtaining the list for purposes. Go ahead, Jeff.
Under the process for the right of first refusal, when we get those documents in from the property owner, they go to the Board of Assessors, the Planning Board, and the Conservation Commission, and the Open Space Committee. Okay, those boards actually receive the same packet that the Board of Selectmen does. And we wait and see what those boards do. Now, the Trails Committee isn't directly contacted in that process, but the Open Space Committee had a conversation with representatives of the Trails Committee, and basically the Open Space Committee's response to the Board of Selectmen was, hey, this would be great for trails, maybe we can get some easements, right? So that conversation evolved after the other boards had already acted on it. We don't want it, and that led to a broader conversation about the potential use of the property, and then the recommendation, at least from the Conservation Commission and the Open Space Committee, for the town to acquire the property. Either acquire the easement or acquire the property. And that's where we are now.
I was really shocked when I read those minutes that the Conservation Commission had voted not to do it. That really surprised the heck out of me. Because I would have expected a unanimous vote to go for it.
In the Conservation Commission, as I said, revisited their position on March 23rd. I received a memo that says the SEC voted 4-1 to recommend that the board do act on the right of first refusal. This was a later action of the commission.
Was that a unanimous vote?
No, it was
for curiosity.
4-1.
So it flipped around from 4-1 one way to 4-1 the other way. Okay.
So then, if these boards,
I don't want to get into too much discussion of this. You know,
yeah.
Coming. I just want to kind of keep it to facts. Let's not offer opinions. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, I'm not giving an opinion. Did I give an opinion?
All right, so go ahead. I just want to be careful we're not.
No, I want to know procedurally if these boards are discussing it, voting it, conservation trails, etc., planning. Who ultimately has who's going to be the one to say, yes, we're going to exercise the right? Is it the BOS?
The Board of Selectmen.
No, the town meeting has the right.
Well, I know.
No,
Kevin,
that's not what I meant.
Ultimately, yes, Kevin, but the Board of Selectmen are the ones that say we want to act on the right of first refusal.
That's what I'm asking. Right. Thank you. Okay.
I just want to know, did you mention earlier that there was a vote by the planning board, and was also reversed?
No, the planning board is still against it, as far as I know. I haven't heard anyone say that the planning board voted it.
I think what
still has to depend on Jeff to keep us surprised at that.
I think what we'll do is make sure the finance committee gets the minutes of the April 5th Board of Selectmen meeting, that's where the hearing was, and that's where the information was collated for everybody.
All right.
Just not to drag this out, just a quick question for Jeff, because I don't have it, I shut my other computer off, so I don't have the warrant in front of me. Didn't the Board of Selectmen, and I could be wrong on this, didn't they vote to place it?
They voted to place
Did
it.
they recommend we?
Yes.
Okay.
They voted.
They didn't vote to do it. They voted to place it on the warrant.
Yeah, it's the difference.
They're
Place
in-
not.
They are in favor of the town meeting making the decision.
That's how I read their vote to place it. They want the vote to do it, not them. I get it, Jeff. Okay.
All right.
We can't do that.
It's very helpful, though.
Can't do that.
Well,
Any other old?
You know, like you tell me, the warrants are yours.
The recommendation is ours, that's all.
Any other old business? Okay, hearing none of that, we're into public access. Jeff, is there anybody who wants to speak to us?
Good evening. Is there anyone on the public line that would like to address the Finance Committee? Is there anyone on the public line that would like to address the Finance Committee?
Only once. Only twice.
There's no one out there.
They're all going home and going to bed.
And so. Okay. So now I'd entertain a motion.
Okay.
So moved.
Joni, do I have a second?
Before you adjourn,
Oh, go ahead, Jeff. Sorry.
before you adjourn, please let me know ahead of time how many of you all want to be here next time, because we got to make sure we arrange the seats accordingly, please.
Yeah, so if you could let me know again by end of day Tuesday, I will get it put all together and send one email off to Jeff, and we'll have it all set up. Okay?
We have to remember what day it is, that's all.
Yep.
I know I'm guilty.
No, I know you kind of get lost in the shuffle every now and then what day it really is. All right, so I have one motion to adjourn. I need a second.
Second.
Kathy. All right, so I shut down my spreadsheet, so I'm going to try to do this in order. Bruce?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Yes. Joni? Yeah, I got you, Mike. Thank you. Joni?
Yes.
Larry?
Yes.
Kathy?
Yes.
Kevin is a yes, and Jim? Jim?
Come on, say it, Jim.
Yes.
All right, we are adjourned at 9:38 p.m. Thank you, everyone. I appreciate the patience.
Thank you.
And see you.
Good night, everybody.
Thank you all for the support as well.
Good night. Thank you.
Okay, have a great night.
Kevin.